The Woman Who Walked Out of the Courthouse, How Vivian Blake Buried a Billionaire and Married the Man Everyone Feared. They laughed when Adrian Cole threw her out of his penthouse with a suitcase and a signed prenup. They stopped laughing the day she walked out of that divorce courthouse and climbed into a black car belonging to Roman Vexley, the most feared man in the city. 48 hours later, Adrian's bank accounts froze. In a week, his partners vanished. In a month, he was begging for a meeting. But before I tell you how a quiet woman buried a billionaire without ever raising her voice, do me a favor? Hit that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Stay with me till the end. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens in that last room. The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. It came down in that slow, steady way that wasn't really weather anymore, just a mood the city had settled into. Gray water streaked the marble steps of the Ridgefield County Courthouse. Gray sky pressed flat against the glass towers downtown. Even the cameras looked gray, dull lenses aimed at a dull door, waiting for the man everyone had already decided to bury. Inside courtroom 4B, Vivian Blake sat with her hands folded in her lap and counted the tiles on the ceiling. She'd counted them twice already. Once during the opening statements. Once while her lawyer, a short woman named Priya Shah with a voice like a paper cut, had laid out in clean, devastating bullet points exactly how much of Adrian Cole's empire had been built on the spine of his wife. 42 tiles across, 17 down. She kept losing count near the air vent. Mrs. Cole? Her head lifted. The judge was looking at her. So was her husband from the other table. So was the gallery, full of reporters pretending to take notes, and associates pretending not to smirk. Ms. Blake, Priya corrected quietly, and the judge nodded without blinking. Ms. Blake, do you have anything to add before the court finalizes the division of assets? Across the aisle, Adrian Cole shifted in his chair. He'd gotten a haircut for this. Navy suit, no tie, the carefully constructed look of a man who wanted the cameras to see misunderstood, not guilty. His jaw worked the way it did when he was trying not to say something expensive. Vivian looked at him. 14 years, 2 houses, 1 dog that had died on a Tuesday while he was in Singapore and hadn't come home early. A miscarriage in a hotel bathroom in Chicago because he'd promised a car and then forgot. A bruise on her forearm from the night she told him she'd found the second phone. He'd said it was an accident. She'd said okay. She'd said okay a lot, over 14 years. No, Your Honor, she said. I don't have anything to add. Her voice was even, not small, not loud, just hers. The judge nodded, looked down at her papers, and did the math out loud. 47% of Cole Holdings. The Tribeca Building. Liquid assets frozen pending audit. Spousal protection order granted on the basis of documented emotional abuse and 1 verified instance of physical intimidation that Priya had pulled out of a deleted iCloud backup like a magician yanking a rabbit by the ears. Adrian's chair scraped. This is insane, he said, loud enough to carry. This is, Your Honor, with all respect, this woman contributed nothing to Mr. Cole. She was a housewife. Mr. Cole, you will sit down or I will have you removed. He sat. Vivian didn't look at him. She'd stopped looking at him somewhere around the 3rd year. Looking at Adrian was like looking at a photograph of yourself on a day you'd rather forget. Technically, you, but blurred by everything that came after. Priya touched her elbow. It's done, she murmured. You ready? Not yet, Vivian said. Viv, the press is outside. You know how this goes. Head down, no comment, straight to the car. I know. You okay? Vivian almost laughed. It was the first almost laugh she'd had in a month. Yeah, she said. I think I'm okay. He chat. The hallway smelled like floor wax and old coffee. Adrian caught up to her near the elevator bank. She heard him before she saw him. The specific sound of Italian leather hitting marble too fast. His lawyer was trailing him, saying, Adrian, don't, the way people say things they know won't work. Vivian, she stopped, didn't turn. Vivian, turn around. She turned, slowly, the way you turn toward a dog that's growling but hasn't decided yet. Up close, under the fluorescence, he looked tired, not broken. Adrian Cole didn't break, but tired. Tired the way a man gets when something he assumed was furniture turns out to be load-bearing, and it's walking out of the room. "You think this is over," he said. "I think court's over, Adrian. You think you won." "I didn't come here to win." He laughed. It was the wrong laugh. Too sharp, too quick. Right. You just came here to do the right thing. Is that it?" He stepped closer, and Priya's hand tightened on Vivian's elbow, a small, sharp warning. 14 years, Viv. 14 years I built everything we had, and you built it. Yes. Okay. That's all you have to say? You just said it, Adrian. You built it. I don't know why you'd expect me to argue. Something shifted in his face. That was the thing about Adrian. He didn't want agreement. He wanted a fight. Fights were how he confirmed he was the biggest thing in the room. Agreement made him look briefly like a man shouting into a mirror. "You're going to regret this," he said. Quieter now. Closer. She could smell his cologne, the same one for 14 years, the one she used to buy him for Christmas back when she still thought Christmas meant something. "You walk out those doors, Vivian, and you're nobody. You hear me? Nobody. You don't have a career. You don't have friends that weren't mine. You don't have a single goddamn thing in your life I didn't pay for." "Adrian," his lawyer softly. "Adrian, please. She needs to hear it." "I hear you," Vivian said. He blinked. "I hear you," she said again, and her voice didn't shake, and that was the part that would bother him later. Not that she left, but that she didn't shake. "And I don't agree. But I hear you." The elevator dinged. She stepped into it. Priya followed. Adrian stood in the hallway, one hand half raised like he'd meant to grab something, and then remembered there were cameras in the lobby. The doors closed on his face. Priya exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a year. "Jesus, Viv. I'm fine." "You're something. I don't know if fine is the word." Vivian watched the numbers descend. 4, 3, 2. "Priya." "Yeah." "There's going to be a car out front, black. It's not mine. I want you to go out the east exit with my driver. Tell the press I'm not coming." Priya turned her head, slowly. "What car, Vivian?" "A friend's." "What car?" The elevator hit the ground floor. The doors slid open onto a lobby full of noise. Reporters, security, the dull roar of a building that had been waiting all morning for its photograph. Vivian looked at her lawyer. Her very smart, very tired, very decent lawyer who had fought for her like Vivian was her own sister, and who was about to be asked to pretend she hadn't seen what she was about to see. "Thank you, Priya," Vivian said, "for everything." Then she walked out. The cameras hit her like weather. They always did that. You thought you were ready, and then 200 flashes went off at once, and the world tilted, and someone shouted, "Mrs. Cole," and someone else shouted, "Vivian," and a third person shouted a number that was probably the settlement figure leaked from inside the courtroom before she'd even cleared the doors. She didn't stop. She didn't smile. She didn't put a hand up to her face. She just walked. Down the marble steps, past the bronze figure of Justice with her crooked scales, past the news van with the dented side panel, past a young reporter who was shouting a question so loudly his voice cracked in the middle of it. At the bottom of the steps, at the curb, a black car was waiting. No plates yet. Temporary tags. Heavy body. The kind of windows you could tell were bulletproof just by the way the light didn't move through them right. A driver stood by the rear door, hands folded in front of him, not looking at the cameras, not looking at her, looking at the middle distance the way men trained a certain way always looked at the middle distance. The door opened from the inside. The cameras kept flashing, but something in their rhythm changed. The shouting pitched down half a note. Even reporters had instincts, and their instincts were telling them, all at once, that they were looking at something they didn't understand yet. Vivian paused at the curb. Just for a second. Just 1 second. Rain hit her shoulder. The wool of her coat went a shade darker. She breathed in once, out once, and she let herself remember. A summer in Elm Ridge 22 years ago. Cracked sidewalk. 2 kids on a stoop. A boy with a split lip and knuckles taped with electrical tape because his mother had run out of real bandages. A girl with a paperback balanced on her knees, reading to him out loud because his eye was too swollen to focus on print. "You don't owe them anything, Viv," he'd said, and she'd said, "I know." And he'd said, "Say it like you mean it." And she hadn't been able to. Not then. Not at 15. And then she was 37, and it was raining, and she stepped off the curb. She bent down, looked into the car. He was sitting in the far seat. One ankle crossed over the opposite knee. Black suit, black shirt, no tie. Watch she didn't recognize. Hands loose and still on his thigh. Not folded, not gripped, just resting. The way hands rest when their owner has never once in his adult life had to worry about what to do with them. Roman Vexley. He didn't smile. Roman didn't smile in public. He didn't do anything in public that he hadn't decided beforehand was going to be useful to him. But his eyes did something that could not be photographed. They went from the careful, polished blankness they wore around strangers to something older, something from the stoop in Elmridge, something from before either of them had learned how to perform. Get in, Viv. 2 words. Low voice. Not a command, not a question, just the flat, unhurried confidence of a man who had been, on some internal calendar only he knew how to read, counting down to this exact minute for a very long time. She got in. The door closed. The cameras, outside, began to scream. Whooped. Inside the car it was very quiet. Vivian didn't look at him for a long moment. She looked at her own hands. They were steady. She noted this distantly, like a scientist. Huh. Steady hands. Interesting. The car pulled away from the curb, smooth, no jerk, no lurch. The driver had done this before. You want a drink? Roman said. I want a cigarette. You don't smoke. I used to, when I was 15. You smoked 1 cigarette when you were 15 and you threw up on my shoes. You remember that? I remember everything. She turned her head finally, looked at him. He had aged. Not badly. Roman had always had the kind of face that would age the way stone aged. Slowly, and then suddenly, and then not at all for another decade. There was silver at his temples now that hadn't been there the last time she'd let herself really look. A small white line along his jaw that might have been a scar or might have been a shaving accident, but she knew him, and she knew it was a scar. His eyes were the same. That was the thing that got her. That was the thing that made the skin on her arms go tight under the wool. His eyes were the exact same eyes of the 15-year-old boy on the stoop, and she thought stupidly, that's not fair. That's not how people are supposed to work. Roman. Viv. What are you doing here? Driving. Roman. He looked at her. Really looked. Not the way Adrian had looked at her in the hallway, which had been the look of a man inventorying a thing he owned and trying to figure out why the receipt didn't match. Roman looked at her the way you look at a door you have been standing outside of for a very long time and which has finally opened. You called Miriam on Tuesday, he said. I called Miriam to ask about a contractor. Miriam doesn't know any contractors, Viv. Miriam is a 72-year-old woman who makes apricot jam and has 3 cats. You called Miriam because you wanted to know if I was still at the same address. Vivian said nothing. She called me Wednesday morning, Roman said. She said the Blake girl wants to know where you are. She said, I think maybe it's time. A small muscle in his jaw moved. I've been in this car since 8 a.m. Court started at 9. I know. You've been sitting here for... I said I'd be here when you were ready. He shrugged, one shoulder, a small lift. You're ready? She didn't know what to do with her face, so she looked out the window. The city slid past, wet and gray and indifferent. A man at a bus stop under an awning that wasn't quite wide enough, getting soaked anyway. A child in a yellow raincoat that was too big, hand clamped in a mother's hand. A billboard, very high up, advertising Cole Holdings. Building tomorrow. She almost laughed at that one. Almost. He's going to come after you, she said. He can try. Roman. He's still got people. He's got lawyers. He's got... Viv. She stopped. Look at me. She did. He's not going to come after anyone, Roman said, very evenly, very softly, in the exact same voice a doctor might use to tell you your tests came back clean. Because by this time tomorrow, he's going to be extremely busy with other things. Roman, I'm not asking you to approve of anything. I'm telling you what the shape of the next 6 months looks like. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to sign anything. You don't have to say anything. You just have to decide if you want to sit in the passenger seat for it or the driver's seat for it. And if I want neither, Then I drop you at a hotel, and you never hear from me again, and I handle it anyway." She stared at him. "That's the deal?" "That's the deal." "That's a terrible deal, Roman. Those are terrible options." "I know. You don't give me a get out." "There is no get out, Viv. He decided there was no get out the first time he put a hand on you. I just waited until you were ready to stop pretending there was." A long silence. The car turned. The skyline shifted. She recognized, vaguely, that they were not driving toward anywhere she'd asked to go, and also that she hadn't asked to go anywhere. "When did you know?" she said. "Know what?" "That he—" 3 years ago. There was a party. You wore a green dress. You had a long sleeve on one arm and a short sleeve on the other because he'd grabbed the wrong side of you the night before and the bruise hadn't come down. Her throat did something complicated. "I didn't say anything," Roman said, "because you weren't ready. And because you'd asked me once, a long time ago, to never make a decision for you. Do you remember that?" "I remember. I have kept that promise, Viv, for 22 years, every single day. It has cost me—" He stopped, turned his face to the window for a second, the way men do when they don't want you to see a thing move in their jaw. "It has cost me, but I kept it. I know. Do you?" "I do, Roman. I know." The car slowed. They were pulling up somewhere. She didn't look to see where. She couldn't quite look yet. "I'm not the same boy," he said. "I'm not the same girl." "No, you're better." "Roman, I said what I said." She laughed, finally. One small, wet laugh, and it startled her, and her hand came up to her mouth like she could catch it and put it back. He smiled then, just barely, just at one corner of his mouth. It was a private smile. It was not a smile that would ever be photographed. It was 15 years old, and it lived on a stoop in Elmridge in 2003, and it had survived every single thing that had happened since. And it was, she realized, the only smile in the world she had ever fully trusted. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you out of the rain." They ended up at a house she didn't know. Not a penthouse, not a compound. A house. 3 stories, red brick, quiet street in a neighborhood that wasn't famous. Old trees. A wrought iron gate that opened without anyone touching it. No guards visible, which told her there were a lot of guards because Roman didn't do unguarded, and he didn't do visible. Inside it was warm. That was the first thing she noticed. It was warm, and it smelled like cedar and something baking, and there was a kettle on somewhere, and the floors were old wood that creaked in the exact polite way old wood was supposed to creak. A woman met them in the foyer, 50s maybe. Gray at the temples, kind eyes, apron. "Miss Blake." "Hi. I'm Elena. I run the house. Your room is ready upstairs. I laid out some things. I hope they fit. If they don't, we'll fix it." "Thank you. Are you hungry?" Vivian paused. She thought about it. She genuinely thought about it, which was the first time in 6 weeks she'd thought about hunger as a real question instead of a chore. "Yeah, I think I am. I don't think I ate today." "I'll make something." Elena disappeared into the back of the house. Roman took Vivian's coat, wet with rain, and hung it on a hook by the door. He didn't make a production of it. He didn't say anything while he did it. He hung her coat up the way a man hangs up a coat that has been coming in and out of his house for years. "Roman." "Yeah." "Whose house is this?" "Mine." "You live here?" "Sometimes." "It doesn't look like you." "What do I look like, Viv?" "I don't know. Cold floors, glass walls, a panic room behind a Rothko." "I have all that. I don't live in it." "Why not?" He looked at her, considered the question. "Because my mother would have hated it," he said finally, "and she had good taste." Something in Vivian cracked, very quietly, in a way she hoped he didn't see. Upstairs, she sat on the edge of the bed in a room she'd never been in before, in clothes that weren't hers, and she started to shake. Not because she was scared. She wasn't scared. That was the strange part. She was shaking because for the first time in 14 years she was somewhere, physically, geographically, in 4 walls. That did not require her to perform anything. There was no dinner to plan, no photo op to dress for, no phone to monitor in case Adrian called and was in a mood. No mirror to consult to make sure her face was arranged into the correct shape. She could sit on this bed and shake, and no one was going to say, "Pull it together, Viv. They're going to be here in 20 minutes." She sat there for a long time. At some point, she realized she was crying. She didn't remember starting. At some point after that, she realized she wasn't anymore. She got up, washed her face, found the clothes Elena had laid out. Soft gray sweater, black slacks, wool socks. Too big in the shoulders. She rolled the sleeves. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a woman she remembered from a long time ago. Younger around the eyes. Not softer, just less managed. She went downstairs. Roman was in the kitchen, sleeves pushed up, pouring 2 cups of something out of the kettle. Not tea. She caught the smell. Black coffee, actually, the cheap grocery kind, which made her laugh out loud before she could stop. He turned. "What? You're the most feared man in the city, and you're drinking Folgers." "I like Folgers, Viv." "I know you do, I remember." He handed her a mug. Their fingers touched. Neither of them said anything about it. Elena put a plate of food in front of her. Eggs, toast, a piece of fruit cut up the way you cut fruit up for a kid who's been sick. And then vanished like a woman who had made a career out of knowing when to vanish. Vivian ate. She didn't realize how hungry she'd been until the 3rd bite. Then she ate like she hadn't eaten in a week, which was approximately correct, and Roman didn't say anything, and didn't watch her, and didn't not watch her. He just drank his coffee and scrolled something on his phone with the particular deadness of a man reading bad news about other people's problems. "Roman." "What happens now?" He set the phone down. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know." "Okay. That's not an answer." "It's the most honest answer you've given anyone today, Viv. You don't have to decide anything tonight. You're going to sleep in a room with a lock on the inside that you hold. You're going to eat 3 times tomorrow. You're going to walk around the block if you want to, with nobody following you except 2 men you'll never see. And on Thursday, if you want, we can talk about what you want to do next." "Thursday. Thursday. What's Thursday?" "Thursday is when my lawyer comes over with some papers." She looked at him. "Papers for what, Roman?" "A marriage license," he said, perfectly calmly, stirring his Folgers with a spoon that had a little chipped handle. "Hypothetical. No pressure. I just want the option on the table, in case you decide you'd like it there." "Roman." "Viv. I literally got divorced at 11 a.m. this morning." "I know. 5 hours ago." "I can count, Viv." You can't just... I'm not just anything. I've thought about this for 22 years. I've had the ring in a drawer since 2004. I'm not proposing tonight. I'm telling you what's in the drawer. In case one day you want to open it." She stared at him. "You've had a ring since 2004. "Yeah. I was 19 in 2004. "I know how old you were." "Roman, I wasn't going to give it to you at 19. I wasn't going to give it to you at 23 when you married him. I was going to give it to you when you asked. And if I'd never asked, then it would have stayed in the drawer. And you would have just stayed at the address Miriam gave you on Wednesday." "Yeah." She put her fork down. Her hand was shaking again. Not a bad shake, a strange one. "Roman, that's not a healthy thing. That's not a normal thing for a person to..." "No," he agreed. "It isn't. You understand that." "I understand that." "Okay. Okay." A pause. "I'm not saying yes," she said. "I didn't ask a question. I'm not saying no either. I know. I need time." "You have all of it, Viv. You have all the time I ever had. That's the deal." She looked at him across the table. The kitchen light was warm. The rain was still coming down outside. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked in the careful, offbeat way old clocks tick when they've been wound by the same hand for decades. She thought about the green dress and the long sleeve and the bruise. She thought about the stoop in Elmridge and the electrical tape on a boy's knuckles. She thought about Adrian in the hallway that morning saying, "You're nobody," and about how his voice had cracked on the word, and how for 14 years she had been shaped by that crack, had been organized around keeping him from making it, and how she had mistaken that labor for love. "Roman." "Yeah. I want the drawer open." He looked up. "Not tonight," she said quickly. Not Not like a yes, just open. I want to know where it is. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he set down his coffee, got up, walked, unhurried, out of the kitchen. She heard his footsteps on the stairs, 2 flights, and a drawer opening somewhere far away in the house, then footsteps coming back down. He came into the kitchen with a small wooden box in his hand. Walnut, maybe. The kind of box a careful man made himself, once, at a bench in a garage, a very long time ago, because he didn't trust anyone else to make it right. He set it on the table between them. He did not open it. "It's there," he said. "Whenever you're ready, or never." "The drawer doesn't close again, Viv." She looked at the box. She didn't touch it. She nodded. Outside, very far away, a siren moved through the rain, the sound bending around the brick buildings and the old trees and the gate that opened by itself. Somewhere in the city, Adrian Cole was pouring a drink with a hand that didn't quite obey him, and he was calling a lawyer, and the lawyer wasn't picking up, and then he was calling another one. And that one wasn't picking up either, and a small cold thing was beginning in his stomach that he did not yet have the vocabulary for. In a warm kitchen on a quiet street, a woman in a too-big sweater picked up a fork. She kept eating. The box sat on the table between them, closed, and neither of them looked at it again that night, and neither of them needed to. She slept in a bed that wasn't hers, in a house she didn't know, and when she woke up at 4:17 in the morning, she didn't know for almost a full minute where she was. That was the part that startled her, not the dark, not the unfamiliar sheets, the quiet. For 14 years she had slept next to a man who breathed wrong. Adrian snored, and then he didn't, and then he did again. And somewhere in the middle of the night, he would flip onto his back and make a sound like a drawer closing, and she had gotten so used to tracking those sounds that waking up had become less of an event and more of a slow recount of his noises to confirm he was still there. She couldn't hear anything in this house. She lay in the dark and listened, hard. A clock somewhere. A pipe, somewhere further, doing the thing old pipes do. Rain on a window. That was it. No one breathing next to her. No one at all. She pressed her palm flat to the mattress beside her and felt the cool, unused sheet. Then she started to cry again, but quietly, and not for long, and when she was done she felt something she hadn't felt in so long she had to sit up to identify it. Rested. She felt rested. That was a terrible thing to realize at 4:17 in the morning. It meant something about the last 14 years she wasn't ready to look at in full light yet. She got up, found the sweater on the chair where she'd left it, padded out of the room in wool socks. The hallway had a small lamp on, low, the kind of lamp a considerate person leaves on for a stranger who might get up in the night and not remember where the bathroom was. The kitchen was also lit, low. Roman was sitting at the island. He had a laptop open in front of him, a mug of coffee, and reading glasses she had never in her life seen him wear. That stopped her in the doorway. Reading glasses. Roman Vexley. Thin wire frames sliding down his nose. He looked up when she came in and didn't take them off, and she thought, he's decided not to be embarrassed about these. That's new. "You're up," he said. "So are you." "I don't really sleep." "Since when?" "Since a while." She walked to the counter, poured herself a mug from the pot he'd clearly made fresh. It was still the Folgers. It was, she noticed, the same brand her mother used to drink out of a yellow mug at a Formica table in Elmridge, a long time ago. She wondered if he remembered that too. She didn't ask. "What are you doing?" she said. "Working." "On what?" He looked at her over the glasses. Considered. She could see him decide in real time how much to tell her. "On your husband," he said finally. Ex-husband. Ex-husband. She sat down across from him at the island. The stool was a little too tall for her. Her feet didn't quite touch the rung. It was the kind of small humiliation she'd stopped noticing years ago, because Adrian's houses were all designed for Adrian's height, and she had trained herself not to notice the things that hadn't been designed for her. "Show me," she said. "Viv, you said I could sit in the driver's seat or the passenger seat. I want to sit somewhere. Show me what you're doing." He didn't argue. He turned the laptop around. She looked. It was a spreadsheet. Not a fancy one. Rows and columns in a flat gray font, the kind of thing an accountant would make. Company names down the left, dollar amounts in the middle. A column on the right with names. Some she recognized from Adrian's circle, some she didn't. Across the top, dates. The earliest date was 2009. What am I looking at? Every shell company Adrian Cole has set up in the last 17 years. Every shell that funnels into another shell. Every shell that ends in a bank account that isn't his name, but is his money. How did you... You don't want me to answer that, Viv. Try me. I have a guy. Who has a guy? Who has a woman? Who used to work for the IRS and now works for nobody, except occasionally for me when she needs a new roof. Roman. What? That's a lot of guys. I know. She scrolled. She didn't know what she was doing exactly, but the act of scrolling was something to do with her hands. Some of the numbers were small. 15,000 here, 22 there. Some of them were not small at all. There was one, dated March of the previous year, for $4.6 million, routed through a company called Harbor Pine Holdings that she had never heard of in her life, and which had, she saw in the right column, her own name on it as a minority board member. Her stomach dropped. Roman. Yeah, I know. This says I'm on the board of a company I've never heard of. I know. There are 10 companies on this list with my name on them. 13, actually. I'm still finding them. I never signed anything. I know. Roman, he forged my signature on 13 companies. Viv, breathe. She realized she wasn't. She set the mug down with a hand that was suddenly not steady at all. The coffee sloshed. A small brown half-moon bloomed on the marble. Neither of them moved to wipe it up. This is fraud, she said. Yes. This is federal fraud. Yes. If anyone ever audited any of these companies, I would go to prison. You would not go to prison, Viv. How do you know? Because I've already put a folder together with forensic handwriting analysis on every forgery, dated records of where you physically were on every single day he signed your name, and 3 separate affidavits from notaries he bribed, 2 of whom are willing to testify in exchange for the IRS looking somewhere else when they review their last 4 years. He took the glasses off, set them on the counter. You are not going to prison, Viv. He is. She sat for a long time with her hands around her mug. When did you find this? She said finally. Most of it, about 8 months ago. 8 months? Yeah. You've been sitting on this for 8 months. I've been waiting for 8 months. For what? For you to call Miriam. She closed her eyes. Roman. Viv, I told you this yesterday. I told you I don't make decisions for you. I had a folder on your kitchen table's worth of evidence that your husband had committed enough financial crime to die in a federal prison, and I sat on it because you had not asked me to do anything with it. If I had walked that folder into the U.S. Attorney's office in March, I would have taken away your choice, and I made a promise a long time ago that I wouldn't do that. You're telling me you had proof he was... I had proof of a lot of things. The money was just the cleanest. Define a lot of things. He didn't answer. Roman. Viv. Define a lot of things. He leaned back on his stool, scrubbed a hand over his jaw. It was the first unguarded gesture she had seen from him since she'd gotten in the car. It made him look for one brief second like the boy she remembered, and not the man he had become. There's a woman in Miami, he said. Name is Carla Reyes, used to work as a VP of acquisitions at Cole Holdings. Quit in 2019, you remember her? Vaguely, red hair, tall. Yeah, she quit because Adrian cornered her in a stairwell at a conference in Lisbon, and she had to hit him with a laptop bag to get out. He paid her $2 million to sign an NDA. He paid her another $800,000 over the next 3 years to keep signing additional ND. A's every time she remembered a new thing she wasn't supposed to talk about. She lives in a condo in Miami now that she hates. She has 2 kids. She drinks too much. She wants out of that NDA more than she has ever wanted anything in her life, and she is waiting for me to tell her it is safe. Roman. There's a man in Queens. His name is Marcus Okafor. He used to be Adrian's driver. In 2017, Adrian was extremely drunk in the back of the car and told Marcus a very specific story about a business partner of his named Gene Whitford. Gene Whitford died 3 weeks later in what the police called a tragic accidental fall from a 16th floor balcony. Marcus has not slept through a night since. Marcus keeps a notarized statement in a safe deposit box, and he has been waiting, for 8 years, for somebody to ask him about it. Roman, There's a woman named... Stop. He stopped. She put both hands flat on the marble. The half-moon of coffee had spread. She didn't care. Are you telling me, she said very slowly, that my husband killed someone? Your ex-husband. And I'm telling you that Gene Whitford was in the middle of suing Cole Holdings for $11 million when he fell off a balcony. I am telling you that Adrian Cole had a conversation with a driver about Gene Whitford 3 weeks before Gene Whitford died. I am telling you I am not a prosecutor, and I cannot tell you what happened in Gene Whitford's last 5 minutes on this earth. I can tell you what Marcus Okafor thinks happened, and I can tell you that Marcus Okafor is a deeply religious man who has been sick about it for 8 years. She got up. She didn't know she was going to, and then she was. She walked to the window. She put her forehead against the cold glass, and she looked out at the dark street, and she tried to make her lungs remember what they were for. 14 years. She had slept next to him for 14 years. She had eaten his breakfast. She had introduced him to her mother. She had cried with him on the phone from the hotel bathroom in Chicago, and he had said, "I'm so sorry, baby," and she had believed him, and she had flown home, and she had folded his shirts. She had folded the shirts of a man who may have... Viv. She didn't turn. Viv, breathe. I am breathing. You're not. She inhaled, held it, let it out. I didn't know, she said. I know. I didn't know, Roman. I know. Nobody is saying you knew. Nobody is ever going to say you knew. That's not what this is about. Then what is this about? This is about what you want to do. She turned around. Her face felt too hot. Her hands felt too cold. The kitchen was still warm and low lit and smelled like coffee, and it was obscene how normal it looked, like a kitchen in a Pottery Barn catalog, when what was on the laptop behind her was the quiet disassembly of a man who had, possibly, walked another man off a balcony. I want him to burn, she said. Roman didn't move. I want him to lose everything. I want every single person who ever laughed at one of his jokes at a dinner I cooked. I want every one of them to stop returning his calls. I want his mother, who told me at my engagement party that I was lucky her son was settling for a girl from nowhere. I want her to hear the news on a television in a hospital waiting room. I want the building downtown that has his name on it. I want the name taken down. I want the building sold. I want the woman in Miami to get her condo she actually likes. I want Marcus Okafor to sleep. I want... Her voice broke once, and she made it work again. I want Gene Whitford's family to know what happened to him. Okay. Don't say okay like that's a grocery list, Roman. It is a grocery list, Viv. You want groceries? I go get groceries. I don't want him dead. I know. I need you to hear me, Roman. I don't want him dead. I don't want him hurt. I don't want anything that happens to him to be something I can't explain in a courtroom. I want it legal. I want it boring. I want it so boring and so legal that when people write about it, they don't use adjectives. Do you understand me? He looked at her for a long moment. Yes, he said. Swear. Viv. Swear to me, Roman. I swear. Because that's the only way I do this with you. That's the only way I let you... She gestured at the laptop, at the house, at the whole improbable night. That's the only way any of this is anything but another cage. I hear you. Do you? I hear you, Viv. I'm not the boy who thinks love is a fist anymore. I haven't been that boy since I was 16. You don't have to teach me that lesson. I learned it a long time ago from a girl on a stoop who told me if I ever put my hands on somebody who wasn't swinging first, she would never speak to me again. She blinked. You remember that? I told you, I remember everything. She walked back to the island, sat down, didn't pick up her coffee, didn't look at the laptop, looked at him. Legal and boring, she said. Legal and boring. Start with the money. I already did. Start harder. A small thing at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile. The suggestion of one. Define harder, Viv. The woman in Miami. Carla. Send somebody to her. Not you. Not anyone scary. Send a lawyer. A woman lawyer. Send the best woman lawyer you can find and tell her the NDA is void because it was signed under duress and Adrian is about to be indicted, and she can either get ahead of it and be a witness or get buried under it. Her choice. But tell her, Roman, tell her she's not alone. Okay, Marcus Okafor, same thing, lawyer, protection. His family moves. Tonight if he wants, tomorrow if he doesn't, whatever he needs. Okay? The forged signatures on the 13 companies, that goes to the feds. It goes to the feds. I signed the statement. You signed the statement. Jean Whitford. She stopped. Jean Whitford, I don't know. I don't know enough. That one we go slow on. We find his family, quietly. We see what they know. We see what they want. We don't make them the face of this. We don't put them in a press conference. They get to decide how much they want to know and when. Okay? Okay? I'm not a prosecutor either, Roman. No. But you're not stupid, Viv. You never were. Even when he needed you to be, you weren't. She looked down at her hands. He did need me to be stupid, she said, mostly to herself. That was the whole arrangement, wasn't it? Yes. I kept up my end of it. For a while. For too long. Viv, don't. Viv, look at me. She looked at him. 14 years is not too long, he said. 14 years is exactly the length of time it took. People don't leave on a schedule. They leave when the door is findable. You were looking for the door. You found it. That's not a failure. That's a navigation. She laughed, wet. A navigation. Yeah. Who talks like that? I read. In the car. I have a lot of time in the car. Since when do you read? Since you told me at 18 that a man who doesn't read is a man who can be talked into anything. She stared at him. I don't remember saying that. I remember. Of course you do. A quiet stretched between them, comfortable almost. The clock ticked. Rain did rain things on the window. Roman. Yeah. What happens when the sun comes up? My lawyer comes over at 10. The one with the papers. The one with the papers. I'm not signing the marriage license. I know. Not today. I know, Viv. I wasn't going to ask you to. The papers at 10 o'clock are a retainer agreement for my lawyer's firm to represent you personally in everything that's about to happen. So when the press asks who your lawyer is, you have one. So when the feds call, you have one. That's all. No rings, no licenses. Just a very boring piece of paper that costs me nothing and makes sure a very good attorney is between you and the world starting today. Oh. Yeah. You don't owe me a thank you, Viv. I wasn't going to say thank you. Okay. I was going to say I'm sorry I assumed. You don't owe me that either. Viv, you have spent 14 years apologizing to a man who never deserved one of them. Please don't start with me. You're going to wear yourself out. She laughed again. She didn't mean to. It came out of her the way a cough comes out, without permission. Okay, she said. Okay. But the sun came up gray and slow the way it had been coming up for a week, and Vivian stood at the window watching a city she suddenly understood differently. Every building she could see from this window, she realized, had a story Roman probably knew. Every block had a man who owed somebody, and a woman who was owed. It was the same city she had lived in for 14 years, and it had been a pretty one. Restaurants and galleries and gala invitations, and all along underneath it, there had been this other city, the one Roman lived in, the one Adrian had been trying to build into without ever understanding that Roman already owned the foundation. She thought about Adrian at this exact moment. He would be waking up in the penthouse. Alone, probably. He would check his phone. There would be missed calls. His lawyer, his banker, his accountant. He would call his lawyer first because Adrian always thought problems were legal before he understood they were financial. The lawyer would not answer. The lawyer would not answer for a very specific reason, which was that Roman's people had spent the night finding a thing in that lawyer's life that the lawyer did not want found, and the lawyer had, around 3 a.m., made a quiet decision to be unavailable for approximately 48 hours. Adrian would call his banker next. The banker would answer. The banker would sound strange. The banker would use phrases like, "We need to discuss some unusual activity on the accounts, and I'd prefer to have this conversation in person, and today, ideally, this morning, if possible." Adrian would hang up. He would pour a drink. It was 8 a.m., but he would pour a drink. He would call her. He would call her, and she would not answer. She knew this was going to happen because she knew him. and because she had watched it happen to other people in his life, the slow, confused panic of a man whose structure was being removed one support at a time. And she had always, until today, been the person he called who picked up. Her phone upstairs was buzzing. She knew it was. She hadn't heard it, but she could feel it, the way you can feel someone looking at you across a room. It had been buzzing since probably 6. It would buzz for another hour, and then he would start calling other people, her mother, her sister, her friends, their friends. And each of those calls would come back to her eventually, relayed through the hands of people who would say, "Viv, are you okay?" Adrian sounded strange. She would not answer those either. She heard Roman behind her pouring more coffee. "He's calling me," she said without turning. "I know." "How do you know?" "Your phone's been buzzing since 6. I could hear it from downstairs." Do I need to do anything about that?" "What do you want to do about it?" "Nothing." "Then do nothing." "He's going to start calling my mother." "Your mother doesn't answer unknown numbers." "He's not an unknown number. He is now. Your mother changed her phone on Tuesday." She turned around. "What?" "Your sister called me Monday. She said your mom had been getting weird calls from him for 3 weeks. Threats, wrapped in apologies. She said your mom had been crying about it. I had somebody bring your mom a new phone. New number. The only people who have the new number are you, your sister, your Aunt Ruth, and a woman named Doris from her book club who she said had to have it or she'd die. That's it." "Roman, your mom didn't know it was me. She thinks it was a free phone program for seniors." "Oh my, She loves the phone. She figured out FaceTime in like 2 days. It has a bigger screen than the old one." She didn't know what to do with her face again. This was becoming a pattern. She started. Stopped. "I didn't ask you to do that." "I know. I didn't do it for you. I did it because your mom was a person who made me sandwiches when I was 15 years old and had nowhere to eat them. And 22 years later, when her daughter's ex-husband was making her cry on the phone, I had a way to fix it, so I fixed it. You weren't involved." Roman, that's not how you get to define it." "How do you want to define it, Viv?" She looked at him. "You're going to have to let me do this my own way," she said. "You know that, right? You can't fix all of it before I wake up. Some of it I have to do myself. Even the small stuff. Even my mother's phone. I need to have called her. I need to have been the person who—" "Call her now." "What?" "She's up. She's always up at 6:30. Call her. Use my phone. She doesn't have your number programmed into the new one yet, but if you call from mine, she'll pick up, and you tell her whatever you need to tell her. I will step out of the kitchen." He slid his phone across the marble. Vivian looked at it. Then she picked it up, and she walked to the window, and she pressed her mother's name in a contact list that Roman apparently had updated on Tuesday without telling anyone. And she listened to it ring once, twice, 3 times, and then her mother's voice came through, small and a little hoarse, the way it always was in the morning before she'd had her tea. "Hello? Mom?" A silence. Then, "Vivian." "It's me, Mom." "Baby. I know. Where are you? Are you?" "I'm okay, Mom. Vivian, I've been so worried. I know you have. I'm sorry I didn't call sooner." "Where are you?" Vivian looked at Roman, who was, as promised, already walking out of the kitchen, coffee in hand, not looking back. She watched his shoulders turn the corner into the hallway. She watched him give her privacy the way a person gives privacy who has had a long time to learn how. "Mom," she said, "do you remember a boy who used to come by the house in Elmridge, around when I was 15? Quiet kid, kind of skinny, lived with his grandma after his mom." A pause on the line, then slowly, "Roman." "Yeah, Mom, Roman." "Vivian." "I know how it sounds." "Vivian Ellen Blake." "I know, Mom." "That boy is— I know what he is, Mom." "Vivian, that boy is— the things they say about— I know what they say." "Then why—" "Because the things they say are the things he does to people who hurt other people, Mom. And for 14 years I was married to someone who was hurting me. And I didn't ask Roman to do anything. I promise you, I didn't. I got out, Mom. I finally got out. and he was there. He was waiting. That's all. Her mother was quiet for a long time. Then her mother said, in a voice Vivian had not heard since she was a little girl, "He made you sandwiches, you know." "What?" "When he came by, when you were 15. He ate the sandwiches I made him. But on the Sundays, when I worked the double, he made you sandwiches. In my kitchen, with my bread. You came home and thought it was me. Baby, it was always him." Vivian sat down on the floor by the window. She sat down on the floor because her legs had stopped working. "I didn't know that, Mom. I never told you. I didn't want you to. I don't know. I don't know what I didn't want. I was a young mother. I was tired. I was—" Her mother paused, and her voice did a small wet thing. "He was a good boy, Vivian. He was a quiet, good boy. What he became, I don't know. But the boy I knew, the boy who made you sandwiches. Vivian, if that boy is the one who came to get you yesterday, then you come home and see me. You come home and see me. You bring him. I want to look at him." "Okay, Mom. Soon. Soon. Are you eating?" "I ate eggs a little while ago." "Eat more than eggs, Vivian. You're too thin. You've been too thin for 2 years." "Okay, Mom. I love you." "I love you too, Mom." She sat on the floor with the phone against her ear after her mother had hung up, and she looked out the window at the gray morning city, and she understood very quietly that something had shifted in her life that could not be shifted back. Not Adrian, not the empire, not the money. Something smaller and bigger and much harder to name. A boy in her mother's kitchen making a sandwich on a Sunday in 2003 for a girl who was not yet home from the library. A boy who had done that, and who had then not told her, and who had then, 22 years later, bought her mother a new phone without signing his name to the gift. She thought suddenly and with absolute clarity that whatever she was going to do next, with Adrian, with the companies, with the man in Queens who could not sleep, with the woman in Miami who hated her condo, she was going to do it on her terms. But she wasn't going to do it alone. She wasn't going to do it alone ever again. She stood up, smoothed her too big sweater, walked out of the kitchen and down the hall to the small study where Roman had gone with his coffee. He was at a desk with his laptop and his wire-frame reading glasses, and he looked up when she came in, and whatever he saw on her face made him set down the mug very carefully. "Roman." "Yeah." "Tell your lawyer to bring the papers at 10. Okay?" "All of them." He looked at her, a long beat. "All of them?" "The retainer, the forensic packet, the affidavits, the woman in Miami, the man in Queens." She swallowed. "And the one in the drawer." His hand went still on the mug. "Viv, I'm not saying yes today, Roman. I'm saying I want it in the room. I want to look at it. I want to know what it is. I don't want to wonder about it for another 6 months. I spent 14 years wondering what was in a drawer, and the drawer was his phone, and it was other women's names, and I am tired, Roman. I am so tired of wondering what's in drawers." He didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. She turned to leave the study, and then she stopped in the doorway, and she didn't turn back around because she was not quite brave enough for that yet. "My mother told me about the sandwiches," she said. Behind her a long silence. Then quietly, "They were turkey, Viv." "I know. Turkey and cheese because you didn't like mustard." "I know. I'm glad she told you." "Me too." She walked out. She went upstairs to shower. She passed the small walnut box on her way through the kitchen, and she did not open it, and she did not avoid it. And it sat on the counter exactly where it had been left the night before, closed, patient. And for the first time in her adult life, she had the strange, unfamiliar feeling of being a person who was not running out of time. Outside, the rain finally stopped. The lawyer arrived at 9:52. Her name was Daphne Oduya, and she came up the front walk in flat shoes and a navy suit that had been tailored once and then worn into the shape of an actual working woman, and she carried a leather portfolio that had seen better decades. Elena let her in. Vivian, who was watching from the landing on the second floor like a teenager spying on her mother's company, felt a small embarrassed jolt at how relieved she was that Daphne looked normal. Not glossy, not expensive in the way Adrian's lawyers had always been expensive, where expensive was a kind of performance. Just a woman who had come to work. "Ms. Blake, Vivian, please." "Vivian, Daphne, good to finally meet you in person." "In person." We've met on paper. I've been reading about your life for about 4 months. Oh, is that weird? Yes. It'll get less weird. Vivian liked her immediately. That was the other thing. She had not expected to like anyone new today. And then there was Daphne Oduya, setting her battered portfolio on the dining room table like a woman who had done this enough times that the table didn't intimidate her, and neither did the client. And Vivian liked her the way you sometimes just like a person on contact, for reasons you don't have to examine. Roman came in from the kitchen with 3 mugs balanced in his hands. Daff? Roman. Thanks for coming. Don't thank me, you're paying me. Still. I brought the packet, all of it, like you asked. Daphne looked at Vivian. We don't have to go through all of it today. I want to be clear about that. We can do the retainer, shake hands, and I can come back tomorrow or next week or next month. This is your pace, not his. I want to do it today. Okay? I want to know what I'm sitting on. Okay, Vivian, we do it today. They sat down. Roman at one end, Daphne at the side, Vivian across from her. Elena came in once with a plate of something and then left without asking whether anyone wanted it, and without saying a word, which was, Vivian was beginning to understand, Elena's whole signature move. Daphne opened the portfolio. The first thing she took out was the retainer agreement. This is the smallest thing in here, Daphne said. It's boring. 2 pages. You sign, my firm represents you, attorney-client privilege starts the second you sign. I want you to read it. I want you to read it slowly. I want you to ask me anything you want. The most important sentence is at the bottom of page 1. Vivian read. The sentence at the bottom of page 1 said, in plain language, that Daphne Oduya's firm represented Vivian Blake personally as an individual, and not in any capacity related to Cole Holdings, Harbor Pine Holdings, or any other entity in which Ms. Blake is or has been named as a shareholder, officer, or director, whether with her knowledge or without. Vivian read it twice. You put that in there for the forgeries, she said. I put that in there for the forgeries. Thank you. Sign. She signed. Her own name. Her real signature. For the first time in a long time, the signature of a woman who was signing only for herself. Daphne slid the retainer back into the portfolio, took out the next thing. This, she said, is the forensic packet. Every forgery, every document it appears on. Analysis by a woman in Boston named Dr. Ruth Ann Pell, who is the single best questioned document examiner on the East Coast, and who is, thank God, not expensive because she likes this kind of work. She's the same woman they used in the Keating case. That's a good thing. It means her name carries weight. Vivian flipped through. Her name, her name, her name. Signatures that weren't hers spread across paperwork she had never seen. Some of them were good. Adrian had studied her handwriting or had paid someone to study it. Some of them were sloppy. She stared at one where the loop of her V was wrong in a way that made her almost laugh, because it was the V of a person who had never watched her write her own name in her life. He didn't even look at my signature, she said. No, Daphne said. 14 years? Some of them are good, some of them are bad. It doesn't matter. What matters is they're all his. He did them himself or he had an assistant do them, and either way it's fraud, and either way Dr. Pell can prove it. Okay? The forgeries are the cleanest prosecution. That's what I want you to hear. Forgery is simple. A jury understands forgery. It's not complicated like securities fraud. It's not abstract like tax. He wrote a name that wasn't his. If we walk this into the U.S. Attorney's Office, the U.S. Attorney's Office says thank you. They do their own work on it, and within 6 months we have an indictment. 6 months. Could be faster, could be slower. The federal calendar is the federal calendar, but 6 months is a reasonable ceiling. Vivian nodded. Next one, she said. Daphne took out a thinner folder. This one had a woman's name on it, printed neatly on a label. Reyes, Carla S. Miami, Daphne said. Yeah. I spoke with Miss Reyes this morning. Vivian looked up. When? 6 a.m. her time. I've been working on your file since yesterday afternoon, Vivian. I didn't wait for the retainer. That's my risk, not yours. I called her because I wanted to know what kind of woman we were dealing with before I walked into a room and told you she existed. What? What kind of woman? She cried for about 8 minutes. Oh, then she apologized for crying. Then she asked if this was a trick. Then she asked if I was recording. Then she cried again. Then she said, "Tell me what you need, and I'll tell you what I can give you." She's a tough woman, Vivian. Tough in the way women get tough when they have to. She's had 6 years of sitting on something that has been eating her, and she is, to put it in the clinical language of my profession, primed. She'll testify. She'll testify against the NDA in open court with her name. That is a very big thing that she has agreed to, and I want you to understand how big it is, because she is doing it on the strength of one phone call from a lawyer she has never met, and she is doing it because, quote, "somebody finally asked me." Vivian closed her eyes for a second. She saw, behind them, a woman in a condo in Miami, on a balcony, with a phone to her ear crying at 6 in the morning. "What does she need?" Vivian said. "What? What does she need from us? What do we owe her?" Daphne looked at her, then at Roman, then back. "You don't owe her anything, Vivian. She's a witness. I don't care what the legal answer is, Daphne. I'm asking what the human answer is. What does she need?" Daphne set down her pen. She was quiet for a second. Vivian could see her switching tracks in real time from lawyer Daphne to person Daphne. It was a small thing, but it was visible, and Vivian made a note of it, a small internal note that said, "She's capable of this switch. She's a good one." She said her daughter starts college in the fall, Daphne said. She said she's been putting money aside for it for years, out of the NDA payments, because she didn't want to touch the principal. She said she's scared the school's going to call one day and say the tuition check bounced, because once this comes out, Adrian will try to claw back the NDA money, which he will. His lawyers will argue breach. It won't work, but it'll tie up her accounts for months. Tuition. Tuition. We pay it. Vivian. Roman. We pay it. Roman hadn't said anything in a while. He was watching her work. He said, now very quietly, "Of course we pay it. I don't want it from her. I don't want her to owe us. She won't owe us. Anonymous, a scholarship, a trust, something. Daphne, set it up, however it needs to be set up. I don't want her to know it came from us until years from now, if ever. I want that kid to start school in September without her mother having to count pennies." Daphne was writing. "Okay," Daphne said. "And she gets her condo she likes. Set that up too. She doesn't have to know it's us. Find a real estate woman in Miami who knows her neighborhood. Have her show up with a listing that happens to be perfect. Help her sell the one she hates, quietly, whatever it takes. Okay? And the NDA is dead. Dead. Next." Daphne pulled another folder. Okafor, Marcus T. "Queens," Daphne said. "Queens," Vivian said. "I spoke with Mr. Okafor at 7:30. He picked up?" "First ring. He sleeps with the phone in his hand, Vivian." "Oh. I'm going to tell you the one hard thing about Marcus Okafor, okay? Because you need to know it before you make decisions." "Okay. He told me he's been to a priest 3 times about this. 3 different priests across 8 years because he keeps running out of ones who haven't heard it yet. He says he wants to talk. He says he needs to talk. But he also said, quote, 'If I do this, my kids stop having a father because I'm not going to live long after I say his name out loud.'" Vivian said nothing for a moment. "How old are the kids?" she said. 11 and 14. "Oh no. Yeah. Roman. Yeah. He lives." "Yeah. I don't care what it costs. I don't care how many people. He and his wife and his kids, they live wherever they want. New city, new name, if they want one. A house, a school, a job for him that pays what he was making and doesn't put him behind a wheel, because I think that man has been through enough steering. They live, Roman. Okay? I need you to look at me when you say okay." He looked at her. "They live, Viv. I will take that personally. I give you my word. Personally, I want it personal. It's personal." Daphne was still writing. Her pen had not stopped. "He's going to come out of witness protection with a story about a balcony in 2017, Daphne said. "That is going to be the single biggest thing in this case. If he says what I think he's going to say, Adrian doesn't just lose his money, he loses his freedom. For a long time. For the rest of his, probably." "I know," Vivian said. "I want you to say it out loud so I know you said it out loud." Vivian looked at her. I know that if Marcus Okafor tells the truth about what Adrian told him in 2017, my ex-husband will go to federal prison for conspiracy to commit murder and possibly for more than that. I know that. I am willing for that to happen. I am asking for that to happen, with my eyes open and on the advice of counsel. Okay? Okay. Next one, Daphne said. Daphne took out a folder that was thinner than the others. No label on it, just a blank manila cover. Jean Whitford, she said. Vivian went still. This one I didn't work on last night, Daphne said. This one I want to talk about before I do anything with, because this one is different. Different how? Jean Whitford has a widow. Her name is Marin. She lives in Rye, New York. She's 67. She has 2 grown children and 4 grandchildren, and she has spent 8 years knowing, not suspecting, knowing that her husband did not trip. How do you know she knows? Because she wrote the police 3 letters in 2017, and 4 in 2018, and 2 in 2019, and 1 a year every year after that, until this year, when she wrote them too. What did she say in the letters? Roman's people pulled them. You'll see them in the folder. The short version is, she said her husband was not drinking that night. He was afraid of heights and would never have been on a balcony of his own free will. He had been in a fight with Adrian Cole the week before, and in his last conversation with her, he had said, quote, "If something happens to me, Marin, it was him." Vivian put her hand over her mouth. They buried the letters, Daphne said. Not maliciously, not in a conspiracy way, just a man had fallen off a balcony. The medical examiner had called it accidental. The widow was grieving and angry, and a detective decided she was difficult, and the letters went into a file, and the file got stamped closed. And that was that. It happens all the time. It is happening right now in a file cabinet in a precinct somewhere. It's not a conspiracy. It's worse. It's ordinary. I want to meet her, Vivian said. Vivian, I want to meet Marin Whitford. Vivian, listen to me. You cannot. I know I can't. If you meet her before the case is built, a defense attorney will say you coached her. You poisoned the evidence. You bribed her. They will make every single thing Marcus Okafor says, and Carla Reyes says, and Dr. Pell says fall apart because the widow met with you before the indictment. I know, Daphne. Then why? Because she wrote 10 letters, Daphne. 10 letters over 8 years, and nobody answered, and I want somebody to answer. I don't have to meet her. You meet her. You meet her today, on a plane. I don't care what it costs. You meet her, and you tell her that somebody read the letters. Somebody is going to do something about the letters. You don't tell her about Marcus. You don't tell her about the case. You just... Daphne, I want you to look at a 67-year-old woman in the face and tell her that somebody finally read what she wrote. Daphne looked at her for a long time. Then Daphne said, I can be in Rye by 2. Thank you. I'll take the evening flight back. Thank you. Vivian. Yeah. This is going to be the best part of my month. Okay? I want you to know that. Okay, Daphne. Daphne closed the folder. Vivian was quiet for a second. Her hand had started to shake again, a small vibration in her right index finger that she hid by curling it under the other fingers. She looked at Roman. He was looking at her the way he'd looked at her in the car the day before, not waiting for her, just present, just with her. His coffee had gone cold in front of him, and he hadn't noticed. There's one more thing, Daphne said. Vivian looked at her. I brought it because he asked me to bring it. I brought it because I am paid to bring what the client asks me to bring. I am not telling you to open it. I am telling you it is on the table. Daphne reached into the bottom of the portfolio. She took out the small walnut box. She set it in the middle of the table. Vivian stared at it. You brought that here? He asked me to. From where? From the kitchen, this morning, before you came down. Roman very quietly, Viv, I told Daphne to bring it with the packet because you told me last night that you wanted it in the room. I didn't think I should be the one to walk it in. I didn't want it to feel like a pressure. I thought having Daphne put it down on a table with the other files might make it smaller, just another thing. One of many decisions. Vivian laughed, a little wet. You planned that. I plan a lot of things, Viv. I have noticed. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for that one. The box sat on the table. Vivian did not open it. Daphne, she said. Yeah. Can I ask you a really inappropriate question? Shoot. Do you think I'm insane? Daphne did not laugh. That was the thing Vivian would remember later about this moment. A different lawyer would have laughed, would have made it light, would have said, "Of course not, you've been through so much." Daphne did not do that. Daphne put her pen down and looked Vivian in the eye and took the question like it was a real question. "Do I think you are insane for sitting in this house with this man 48 hours after your divorce was final, considering a marriage license while your ex-husband is about to be indicted on my recommendation? Is that the question?" "Yes. Professionally, I am obligated to say that you are under tremendous stress, that you should not make permanent decisions in a moment of transition, and that I strongly recommend a waiting period of 6 months before you sign anything of that nature." "Okay. Personally?" "Personally." Daphne looked at Roman, then at Vivian. "Personally, I have known Roman Vexley for 11 years. I have worked on maybe 60 matters for him. In all of those 11 years and all of those 60 matters, I have seen him break his word exactly 0 times. I have seen him be cruel exactly 0 times to anyone who did not first do something cruel to someone smaller than them. I have seen him, once, buy a stranger a kidney. I do not know what he has told you about his feelings. I am not the right person to ask about that, but I will tell you, Vivian, that if he has told you he waited 22 years for you, I believe him, because I have never once caught him in a single operational lie, and operational liars, in my experience, do not know how to stop. They lie about small things. They lie for practice. He doesn't. He just doesn't." "Oh, I'm speaking out of turn. I apologize." "No. I shouldn't. Daphne, thank you." "Okay." Daphne stood up. She stacked the files neatly. She put the retainer, signed, into a separate folder. She took her coffee mug to the kitchen herself, because she was the kind of woman who took her coffee mug to the kitchen, and then she came back with her coat on. "I'm going to Rye," she said. "I'll text you when I'm on the ground. Don't text me first. Don't call me first. If the press gets your number, and they will, send them to me. If your ex-husband calls, send him to me. If your mother calls, answer it. If his mother calls, send her to me. We'll talk tonight." "Okay." "Vivian." "Yeah. You did good today. Thanks. Eat lunch." "Okay." Daphne left. The door closed behind her. The house was quiet again. That particular quiet Vivian was starting to recognize, the quiet of a house that had guards she couldn't see and staff she barely saw, and a man across the table from her who had, she was starting to understand, been preparing this exact day for longer than she had been preparing any day of her life. The box was still on the table. Roman had not looked at it. That was the thing. He had not looked at it the whole time Daphne had been there. He had sat at the end of the table with his cold coffee, and he had watched Vivian talk about Miami and Queens and Rye and a balcony, and he had not once looked at the walnut box sitting 3 inches from his own elbow. She thought with a sharp, small tenderness, "He's afraid." Roman Vexley, the most feared man in the city, was afraid of a box he had built himself in 2004. "Roman." "Yeah. Can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "When you made the box 22 years ago, did you think I was going to marry you?" He was quiet for a long beat. "No." "No?" "No, Viv. I thought you were going to marry somebody good. I thought you were going to marry somebody kind, and I thought he would treat you well, and I thought you would have 2 kids and a dog, and I thought I would come to the wedding, and I thought I would stand very far at the back, and I would give you away in my head without anyone knowing, and then I would go home, and I would put the box in the back of a drawer, and I would never open it again." "Oh, I wasn't making a ring to propose. I was making a thing that was a promise to myself about what kind of man I wanted to have been to you. If things had gone different, it was, Viv, it was a compass. It wasn't for you. It was for me." "Then why did you keep it?" "Because the compass still worked. Every time I ever got close to being the kind of man my father was, I would open the drawer and I would look at the box and I would remember that I had made a thing in a garage in 2004 that said, 'You are somebody who does right by her, even if she never knows it.' And I would close the drawer and I would go do the next right thing." "Roman." "Yeah." "Open it." "Viv, open it." "I don't want to be the first person who opens that box, Roman. It's your box. It's been your box for 22 years. You open it." He looked at her. Then he reached across the table, very slowly, and he set his hand on the lid. His hand, she noticed for the first time, was not steady. The most feared man in the city had a small tremor in his index finger, and he hated it. She could tell, because he curled the finger under the others the exact same way she had curled hers an hour earlier. He lifted the lid. Inside the box, on a square of faded blue felt, was a ring. It was not what she expected. It was not a big ring. It was not a flashy ring. It was a thin band of old yellow gold, and set into it was a small stone the color of river water. Not a diamond, she saw, but something gentler, an aquamarine maybe, with a small imperfection near the center that caught the light strangely. The band had been engraved once, on the inside, with something she couldn't read from this angle. What does it say? Inside? Yeah. It says Elmridge, July. She put her hand to her mouth. She was crying again. She was not surprised. She had cried more in the last 48 hours than in the last 14 years, and she had the distant sense that this was not a backslide, this was a catch-up. Her body had been in arrears. Her body was paying an old debt. July, she said. You told me on a stoop in July of 2003 that nobody had ever given you a thing they'd made with their own hands. I was 15 years old. I said, one day I will. I kept my word. That's all. Roman. Yeah. I'm not saying yes today. I know. I might not say yes for a year. I know. I might not say yes for 2. Viv, if you want to take 5 years, you take 5 years. That stone has been in that box for 22. 5 more isn't going to hurt it. She laughed. She put her hand out across the table, palm up. She did not ask him to put the ring on her finger. She asked him, without saying it out loud, to put his hand in hers. He did, and they sat there for a while, with 3 folders and a retainer agreement and an open walnut box on the table between them, and the city going on with its gray morning outside, and a woman in Miami calling her daughter to say the tuition was going to be fine. Don't worry, baby, it's going to be fine. And a man in Queens standing in his kitchen with his hands on the counter, breathing for what felt like the first time in 8 years, and a lawyer named Daphne Oduya on the Amtrak to Rye, with an unopened packet in her lap and a small speech ready in her head for a 67-year-old woman she had never met. And somewhere across the city, in a glass tower, a man was pacing his penthouse in socks, phone in one hand, drink in the other, hitting redial on a lawyer who wouldn't pick up, then on a banker who wouldn't pick up, then on an old friend who wouldn't pick up, then on the only woman whose number he had ever been able to trust to answer on the second ring, no matter how late, no matter how angry he had been, no matter what he had done. He dialed her. It rang once. It rang twice. It rang 4 times. It rang 7. It went to voicemail. It was the first time in 14 years that it had done that, and Adrian Cole sat down very slowly on the edge of his bed with his phone still against his ear, and he listened to his own wife's voice, his ex-wife's voice, he corrected himself, out of nowhere, and the correction felt strange and new and terrible. Tell him in a perfectly pleasant recorded tone that she was sorry she couldn't come to the phone and to please leave a message, and she would get back to him as soon as she could. He did not leave a message. He hung up. He stared at the phone. He put the drink down, and he put the phone down. And for one brief, honest second, before his pride rose up in him again like a flood, Adrian Cole understood exactly what was happening, and the understanding was a cold thing, and it sat in the middle of his chest like a stone, and it would sit there, he knew, for a long time. Then the feeling passed. Then he picked the phone back up, and he called someone else, and the wheel started to spin again the way wheels do on men who have not yet accepted that the wheel has left the road. The person Adrian called next was a man named Victor Holm. Victor Holm had been, for 11 years, the head of security at Cole Holdings, and before that, for 8 years, a specific kind of freelance consultant for a specific kind of clientele. He was 61 years old, ex-military, built like a refrigerator that had been in the family a long time, and he had a face that had never learned the expression surprised. He answered on the first ring, which Adrian took, for one fleeting second, as a sign that the world was not ending. Victor, Mr. Cole. Something's happening. Yes. A pause. Adrian's stomach moved. Yes? I came in at 5:30 this morning, sir. The company is... Let me use a word that is not panic. The company is experiencing multiple simultaneous events. Define events. The accounts at First Continental are frozen, not flagged. Frozen. A federal hold was placed at 3:15 a.m., which means somebody went to a judge at midnight and the judge woke up and said yes. That is not an ordinary thing, sir. That is a person with weight. Who? I don't know yet. Find out. I'm trying. Try harder, Victor. Victor did not respond to that. Victor never responded to that particular tone of voice, which was one of the reasons Adrian had kept him around. Victor treated tone the way a lighthouse treated weather. Noted, not influenced. Sir? What? The second event. Marcus Okafor is gone. Adrian's hand closed on the edge of the nightstand. Gone where? His apartment in Queens is empty. Furniture still there, clothes gone, phones off. I sent a man at 6 because I had a feeling. A feeling. I've been paying attention for a long time, sir. Mr. Okafor has been unwell for a while. I've been watching him. This morning he went. Where? I don't know. Wherever people go when somebody with resources takes them somewhere. Victor, somebody with resources. Yes. Somebody with resources took Marcus Okafor somewhere. Yes. Who? Sir. Who, Victor? Victor paused. In their 11 years, Adrian had never heard Victor pause before answering a question. It had always been one of the most reassuring things about him. When Victor paused, something very bad had happened. Sir, have you spoken to your ex-wife this morning? Adrian went cold, his whole body. The drink on the nightstand, the hand on the edge of the wood, the blood in his face. Victor. Have you, sir? I called. She didn't pick up. Do you know where she is? No. Sir. What, Victor? There is a photograph circulating from yesterday of Ms. Blake getting into a car outside the courthouse. Our people missed it in the first wave because they were watching the wrong door. I saw it an hour ago. I have been trying to decide how to tell you. Whose car, Victor? Another pause. Longer. Roman Vexley's. The silence in the penthouse was so loud it made Adrian's ears ring. No, Adrian said. No, Victor, that's a coincidence. There's 100 black cars in this city. You've got the wrong... I know the car, sir. Victor, I know the car. I know the driver. I have had my people shadow that car off the books for 3 years. The plates are temporary, which is what they always are, because he changes them every 60 days. The driver is a man named Elias Boone, who did 2 tours and now works for exactly 1 employer. The car is Mr. Vexley's. Miss Blake got into it at 11:04 a.m. yesterday. She has not been seen since. 3 years, Victor? Yes, sir. You've been following his car for 3 years without telling me? Sir. Why? Victor's voice got very quiet, in the particular way that a large man's voice gets very quiet when he is about to tell his employer something his employer will not want to hear, and when he has decided, after long consideration, to tell it anyway. Because I have known for about 3 years that he was going to come for you one day. And I wanted to know when, and I wanted to know how. Victor, I am telling you this now, sir, because there is no longer a point in not telling you. He came for you yesterday. He came for you a long time before yesterday. He has been coming for you quietly for a very long time. I thought I would catch some kind of signal in advance. I did not. He is better at this than I am, which is why I did not catch it, and which is why we are where we are. Sir, I am telling you this because if we are going to come out the other side, you need to know what room you are in. Adrian sat on the edge of his bed with his socks still on. He did not remember sitting down. He was not entirely sure when he had last stood up. Roman Vexley, he said. Yes, sir. And Vivian. Yes, sir. How? Victor, that doesn't make any sense. She doesn't know people like... Sir, may I ask a question? What? Did Ms. Blake ever mention a town in New Jersey called Elmridge? Adrian blinked. Yeah, a couple times growing up. That's where she... His brain caught very slowly on something. Wait, Elmridge. Victor, did he... Is that where... That is where Mr. Vexley was born, sir. His grandmother's house is 3 blocks from the house Ms. Blake grew up in. 3 blocks? Yes, sir. They knew each other. Yes, sir. How long? They were, by the accounts of two neighbors we identified many years ago, very close as teenagers. How close, Victor? Sir, how close? I never found any evidence that they were romantic, but they were close, for a period of several years, from approximately her 14th birthday until her first year of college. Then they lost contact. Until it appears, yesterday. Adrian put his head in his hands. It was not grief? He would not have called it grief. Adrian Cole was not built for grief. He was built for reaction, for movement, for the swing of the next deal. What sat on him, in his hands, on the edge of his bed at 9:47 in the morning, was a much older thing. The specific embarrassed rage of a man who has just learned that a story he thought was his had another author the whole time. She didn't tell me. No, sir. 14 years. She didn't tell me. No, sir. Why didn't she tell me? I don't know, sir. Victor. Sir? Was she... Did she... Were they... Sir, I cannot answer a question you are not quite asking. If you want to ask it, I will answer it to the best of my ability. If you don't, I will continue. Adrian did not ask it. He could not ask it. He could not ask it because he was afraid of the answer, and he was afraid of the answer because he had been, for 14 years, a man who had assumed that if his wife had ever loved anyone else, he would have known, on some animal level, by sheer proximity. And now here was Victor, telling him in a perfectly flat voice that Vivian had known Roman Vexley since before she could drive, and had not told him, not once, not on their honeymoon, not at her mother's birthday, not the night they'd fought about her signature on some contract she didn't remember signing. She had kept a person to herself. For 14 years. She had kept a whole person. And Adrian could not say, if he was being honest with himself, which was not something he was particularly practiced at, that he was surprised, because Vivian had always, underneath her quiet, had a thing she didn't share. He had known about it. He had tried, at various times, to find it. He had assumed, eventually, that it was smaller than it was. A hobby, an old diary, a friend who lived far away. He had never once, in 14 years, considered that the thing Vivian had kept was a boy from her hometown, and that the boy from her hometown had grown up into Roman Vexley. Victor. Sir. What do I do? Sir, you are asking the wrong question. What's the right one? The right one is, what is still yours? Adrian breathed in, out. Go, he said. Sir? Find out what's still mine. Make a list. Accounts that aren't frozen. Partners who are still picking up. Any board I can still walk into without being asked to leave. Anything. Everything. Find out what I have left at noon today. I need a goddamn map, Victor. Yes, sir. And Victor. Sir. You kept things from me for 3 years. Yes, sir. I'm not firing you. No, sir. You understand why. Because you cannot afford to fire me today, sir. And by the time you can afford it, you will have remembered that I am the only person on your payroll who told you the truth this morning. Yeah. Yes, sir. The line went dead. Adrian sat on the bed and did not move. He was still sitting there when his phone rang again. It was not a number he recognized. He let it ring twice. Then he answered it, because on a morning like this you answered unknown numbers in case one of them turned out to be someone who would still help you. Hello? Mr. Cole, a woman's voice, calm, professional, middle-aged. This is Adrian Cole, yes. Who is this? My name is Daphne Oduya. I'm an attorney at Oduya, Birnbaum & Vance. I'm calling to inform you that as of 9 a.m. this morning, my firm represents Vivian Blake. If you would like to contact Ms. Blake for any reason, you are instructed to contact me. My direct line is on my card. Your personal attorney will have a copy of the engagement letter by 11 a.m. A long silence. You're joking. No, Mr. Cole. Vivian hired you. Ms. Blake did, yes. With what money? Her accounts are... Ms. Blake's personal accounts, which were not community property, are untouched. Her retainer was paid from them at 9:12 a.m. this morning. Please don't contact her. I'll be your point of communication going forward. Ms. Oduya. Yes, Mr. Cole. Do you know what you're getting into? Yes, Mr. Cole. I don't think you do. Mr. Cole, with respect, I know exactly who my client is, and I know exactly who you are, and I know exactly who the gentleman is in whose house my client is currently residing. I have weighed all three of those quantities, and I have come to a professional decision I am very comfortable with. Please don't contact Ms. Blake. Have a good morning. She hung up. Adrian looked at his phone. He laughed. It was not a good laugh. It was the laugh of a man realizing that the floor he had been standing on was, in fact, a floor on a specific building, and that the building had been sold to someone else several hours ago, and that the new owner was, at this moment, in the lobby, walking in. He called his mother. She answered on the second ring. Adrian? Ma? Adrian, I saw the paper. What is going on? Ma, I need... Adrian, what have you done? Ma, listen to me. I need you to do something. I need you to call Aunt Ro. I need her to call Judge Fenley. I need a meeting with him today. Today, Ma, do you hear me? I don't care if she has to drive out to Greenwich and pull him off a golf course. I need... Adrian. Ma, listen. Adrian Michael Cole. Judge Fenley called Aunt Ro at 6:30 this morning. Adrian stopped. He what? Judge Fenley called Aunt Ro at 6:30 this morning to tell her, and I am quoting, Rosemary, I love you, but do not call me about your nephew, and do not call any of my colleagues about your nephew, because what is coming for your nephew is larger than me, and I would like to retire on schedule. That's what she told me. She was crying, Adrian. Ma, Adrian, whatever you have done, you are on your own. Do you hear me? Ma, this is Vivian. I know it is Vivian. Adrian, Vivian did not do this to you alone. Vivian is not capable of doing this to you alone. You know that and I know that. There is a man. Who is the man? He swallowed. Roman Vexley. There was a silence on the line. Oh, Adrian. Ma. Oh, you foolish, foolish boy. Ma. You know who Roman Vexley is. Ma. I know who he is. I'm not a... Then you know who she is now. Ma, she's not with him. She just... Adrian, listen to yourself. You're telling your mother that your ex-wife of 2 days, who you spent 14 years treating like a piece of furniture that occasionally made you look good at dinner, is not with Roman Vexley, who sent a car to the courthouse for her. Adrian, darling, I love you. I have loved you since the moment the nurse put you on my chest. I am telling you this because I love you. You are in serious, serious trouble, and I cannot help you, because the people who could help you are afraid of him, and the people who are not afraid of him are afraid of the Bureau, and the Bureau is, I suspect, about to have a very interesting few weeks because of you. I am going to hang up. I am going to call my lawyer, not your lawyer, my lawyer, and I am going to make sure that whatever is coming for you does not touch me or your father. I am sorry. I am so sorry, Adrian. I will come see you when you are settled somewhere. Is he altai? When I'm settled, I love you, baby. She hung up. Adrian sat on the bed. His phone was hot in his hand. He looked at it like it was a thing that had betrayed him, and he set it down very carefully on the nightstand next to the drink. He stood up. He walked into the bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror. He did not cry. Adrian Cole had not cried since he was 19 years old. The muscles required for crying had atrophied in him, the way muscles do in a limb kept too long in a sling. What happened to him in the bathroom at 10:04 a.m. on a Tuesday in late April was a much quieter thing, and it happened in a mirror with a crack in the corner that he had been meaning to have someone fix for 6 months. He understood that he was alone, not legally alone. Legally, he had a team. Criminally, he would have another team, soon, an expensive one. Publicly, there would be surrogates, allies, old friends with reasons of their own. He was, in that sense, far from alone. What had left him was the other thing, the thing he had never thought to count, the thing he had mistaken for having enough people. His mother had just hung up on him. His mother had hung up on him, and she had used the word settled, the way you used it for a dog. And somewhere across the city, in a warm kitchen in a brick house on a quiet street, there was a woman eating lunch. She was eating lunch because her lawyer had told her to eat lunch, and because a man with reading glasses and a mug of Folgers had reheated the soup Elena had left, and because, for the first time in a long time, she had noticed she was hungry, and the noticing had felt like something. She was not thinking about Adrian. That was the thing that would have hurt him most, if he had known it. Not the list of people who were dismantling his life. Not the frozen accounts. Not the U.S. attorney who had, by 11 a.m., received a packet from Daphne Oduya that would consume the next 14 months of her life. Not the reporters who were even now assembling in the lobby of a glass tower on Park Avenue to stake out a penthouse in case its occupant came down for coffee. What would have hurt him, if he had been able to see it, was the simple domestic fact that his ex-wife was eating soup at a stranger's kitchen island, and she was laughing at something Roman had said about the soup, and she had not thought about Adrian Cole in almost 40 minutes. "It's too salty," Roman said. "It's not. Elena made it with the wrong stock. I can tell." "Roman, it's fine. I can go get something else. It's soup. We're eating soup. Stop trying to fix the soup." "I'm trying to—" "You're trying to do something. Sit down. Eat the soup." He sat. He ate the soup. She watched him eat the soup, and she realized with a small surprise that she was studying him. Not the way you study a new face, but the way you study an old face you had once known well and had not seen in a very long time. She was looking at him to find the boy. The boy was in there. The boy was in the way he held a spoon, which was a particular way, left hand, thumb a little too high on the handle. The boy was in the little crease he got between his eyebrows when the soup was, in fact, too salty, and he didn't want to say it again because she'd told him to stop. "Roman." "Yeah." "I want to go home." He looked up. "Home?" "To Elmridge. I want to see my mom, today." He set the spoon down. "Today." "Today. Daphne said she'd be back tonight. I don't have anywhere to be until then. I don't want to sit in this house and wait for a phone call. I want to go home." "Viv, the press." "I know. If you go to your mom's, they'll find her. They already found her. Adrian's been calling her for weeks. They know where she lives. The only people who haven't talked to her about this are me and you. I want to go. I want to go today. I want to take her to lunch. I want to sit in her kitchen. I want to hear her tell me for the 100th time that I should have been a nurse, and I want to—" Her voice shook, finally, a small visible thing. "I want my mom, Roman. I just want my mom." He did not argue. He stood up. He took her bowl and his bowl and put them in the sink. "Give me 40 minutes. "For what?" "To make it safe." "Roman, Viv, you go see your mother." "Of course you go see your mother. I am going to make sure that when you walk up that driveway, there are no cameras on it, no reporters in the bushes, and nobody across the street with a lens. I am going to make sure your mother gets to have her daughter in her kitchen without having to explain herself to a stranger on her lawn. 40 minutes. Go get your coat." "Okay." "Okay." They drove out to Elmridge in an old gray car she didn't recognize because Roman had decided, correctly, that the black one from yesterday was now a car that photographers could identify. Elias was still driving, but he was in civilian clothes, a flannel and jeans, and he looked from 10 feet away like a man who might be on his way to fix somebody's furnace. The neighborhood hadn't changed. That was the first thing. That was always the first thing about Elmridge. The trees were bigger. The paint on a few of the houses was newer. A corner store had become a different corner store. But the sidewalk still had the same cracks, and the cracks still ran in the same directions, and Vivian found herself in the back of the car counting them the way she had counted courthouse ceiling tiles the day before, because some instinct in her needed something to count. Roman was looking out his window. He was quiet in a particular way. His jaw was doing a thing. "Roman." "Yeah." "Have you been back?" "No." "Not once?" "Not since my grandmother died." "When was that?" 2011. "Oh." "Yeah. Are you okay?" He looked at her. "I have been doing a lot of things for the last 2 days, Viv, and none of them have been okay. I am in a car going back to the block I grew up on for the first time in 15 years, with you, to go to your mother's house, and your mother is going to look at me, and I do not know what she is going to see. I am not okay, Viv. I am here. That is a different thing." "Yeah. That is the best I can do today." "Yeah. I'll tell you when I'm okay again, I promise." She reached across the seat and took his hand. She had not done that yet. They had held hands across a kitchen table, palms up, hours before. This was different. This was the back of a car moving through a neighborhood they had both been young in, and she took his hand without looking at him, and he squeezed hers once, hard, and neither of them said anything else for the rest of the drive. The house was still pink. Her mother had painted it pink in 1994 because Vivian had wanted pink, and she had been 5, and she had cried, and her father... This was before her father had left. Before any of that. Her father had said, "Paint the damn house pink, Linda. The kid wants pink." And her mother had painted it pink, and 32 years later it was still pink. A little faded now, with white trim that needed redoing, and a porch with 2 mismatched rocking chairs on it, because her mother had never thrown out the one from 1998, even though the one from 2010 was perfectly good. There were no cameras on the lawn. Vivian had not even quite noticed until she noticed. The street was clear. There was a man at the end of the block pretending to check his tire. There was a woman across the way walking a dog that was not, Vivian suspected, actually hers. There was a truck parked 2 houses down with nobody in it. All of these people, she understood, worked for Roman, or worked for someone who worked for Roman, and they had, in 40 minutes, made her mother's street into a place where a daughter could walk up a driveway without being photographed. She did not thank him for it. She was not going to start thanking him for it. Thanking him for it, she had already decided, would be a thing that made it strange. It wasn't strange. It was apparently what he did. It was how he loved. She got out of the car. She walked up the driveway. The door opened before she got to the porch. Her mother was standing there in a cardigan she had owned since approximately 2006, with her reading glasses on her head like she did when she'd forgotten where they were, and she didn't say anything for a long second. She just looked at her daughter, and her face did a thing that Vivian had not seen since she was 9 years old and had come home from a school trip, a thing that was relief and love and a small breaking apart. "Baby," her mother said, and Vivian walked up the porch and into her mother's arms, and she cried finally, the way she had not let herself cry in the walnut box house or on the kitchen floor or even on the phone at dawn. She cried the way a 37-year-old woman cries into her mother's shoulder on a porch in New Jersey when she has finally come home. And her mother cried too, and for a long minute nobody said anything at all. And Roman stayed on the sidewalk with his hands in his pockets and did not come up the driveway because he understood that he did not yet belong in that embrace. Her mother saw him over Vivian's shoulder. Her mother's arms tightened around her daughter. "Roman Vexley," her mother said to the man on the sidewalk. "Mrs. Blake," he said, "you come up here." "Ma'am?" "Roman, you come up here right now." He came up. He stopped on the second step, which was a thing Vivian noticed. He did not come all the way up. He stopped on the second step like a boy who was not sure he was invited the rest of the way. Her mother let go of her with one arm. She kept the other one around Vivian. She looked at Roman. She looked at him for a long time. "You made her sandwiches," her mother said. "Yes, ma'am." She never knew. "No, ma'am." "You waited a long time." "Yes, ma'am." "And you did not break her." "No, ma'am." "Good." Her mother reached out with the free arm, and she touched his face. Not a hug, just a hand, her palm to his cheek, the way a woman who had known him as a boy might touch a man she had not seen in a while, to confirm that the boy was still in there, under all the rest. "Come in the house, Roman," her mother said. "The coffee's on. It's Folgers. I know that's the brand you like." Roman didn't say anything. He couldn't. Vivian could see it in his throat. And then the 3 of them went inside, and the door closed behind them, and the men at the end of the block and across the way and in the parked truck kept doing what they had been doing, and the pink house on the quiet street went on being a house, and a woman who had spent a morning pretending to be smaller than she was started, for the first time in a long time, to take up the exact amount of room she was meant to. The kitchen in the pink house smelled the way it had always smelled, which was coffee and Murphy's oil soap and the particular warmth of a radiator that was one season past needing to be bled. Linda Blake moved around it the way she always had, slightly too fast, opening the wrong cabinet first, muttering at herself, then finding the right cabinet and pretending she had meant to open the first one. She had put Roman at the table the same way she had put him at the table in 2003, which was to say at the chair closest to the wall, where a boy could sit with his back safe, because Linda had always understood, without anyone having to tell her, that some boys needed a wall behind them in order to eat. Roman did not sit down right away. He stood in the doorway of the kitchen and looked at it. His eyes went to the radiator, to the window above the sink where a glass bird in a sun catcher had been hanging since, Vivian knew, 1998. To the refrigerator, where a Polaroid of a 9-year-old Vivian in a school play was still stuck under a magnet shaped like a tomato. He looked at all of it slowly, and Vivian watched him look, and she understood that he was doing something like inventory, confirming that the world he had carried in his head for 22 years was, in most of its important details, still where he had left it. "You okay?" Vivian said. "Yeah," he said. "You sure?" "Your mom's sun catcher's still up." "I know. It used to catch the light on the wall at about 3 in the afternoon. There was a spot on the wallpaper." "Roman." "I'm fine, Viv. I'm looking at a wall." "Sit down, Roman, for heaven's sake," Linda said, without turning around. "You're making me nervous." He sat down. Linda poured 3 mugs. She set one in front of Roman without asking how he took it, which told Vivian that Linda had remembered a thing from 22 years ago. That Roman had always taken his coffee black because his grandmother had run out of sugar in 1999 and never really started buying it again. He had grown into the preference. He drank it black now by choice. But in 1999, he had drunk it black because that was what his grandmother could afford, and Linda Blake had known that. And Linda Blake had remembered. She set a plate of cookies between them. They were Lorna Doones. Roman laughed. It was the first real laugh Vivian had heard out of him in 2 days, and it was surprised out of him, and it was a boy's laugh, and it startled Linda, who turned around with a dish towel in her hand. "What?" "Nothing, Mrs. Blake." "What?" "You still buy Lorna Doones?" "Well, of course I do. You liked them." He covered his face with his hand for 1 second, just one. Then he put the hand down and picked up a cookie and ate it, and Linda watched him eat it. And Vivian understood, sitting between her mother and this man at the chipped kitchen table, that she was witnessing something that had needed to happen for a very long time, and that no one had been able to make happen until today. "Mrs. Blake," Roman said. "Linda, please. You're a grown man." "Linda." "Yes." "I owe you a thank you." "No, you don't." "Linda." "Roman, no, you don't. You sat at this table when you were 15 years old, and you were skinny as a rail, and you had bruises nobody talked about, and I fed you a sandwich and a glass of juice, and I didn't do it because I was a saint. I did it because you were a child in my kitchen, and if I had a child in my kitchen and I didn't feed him, what kind of woman would I be? So, no, you do not owe me a thank you. You owe my daughter a thank you for sitting on my stoop with you that summer, because she was the only one your age who did. And I don't know if you know this, Roman, but her not sitting on that stoop with you would have been the thing that broke you, not the other things. I watched it happen. I watched her sit down next to you the first day, and I watched you not break. Thank her, not me. Ma. Hush, Vivian. Roman looked at Vivian across the table. He looked at her for a long moment, the kind of look that had weight. Vivian did not look away. Thank you, he said. Don't. I'm going to say it, Viv. I don't want to cry at my mother's table. You're going to anyway. I know. Thank you, Viv, for the stoop. Okay. Okay, she cried. Not for long. Linda handed her a paper napkin from a stack that said Sal's Deli on it in faded red letters, because Linda had been stealing paper napkins from Sal's Deli since the Clinton administration. And Vivian wiped her face, and Roman drank his coffee, and Linda went back to the counter and pretended very badly not to be crying herself. They sat like that for a while. Then Linda said, without turning around, I know what you do, Roman. Roman set his cup down. Ma'am. Linda. Linda. I know what you do. I've known for a long time. I read. I pay attention. I don't pretend to not know a thing when I know it, which is, by the way, the difference between a grown woman and a young one, Vivian. Take notes. Ma, I'm speaking, Vivian. Okay. Linda turned around. She folded her arms. She looked at Roman. I'm going to say this once, Roman, and then I am not going to say it again, and I am not going to ask you about it for the rest of my life, because I am too old for that, and we are all too tired for that. Is that agreed? Yes, ma'am. Linda. Linda, I do not want to know the details. I am not asking for the details. I am telling you what I know, and I am telling you what I expect. I know that you run a certain kind of operation in this city. I know that there are some people who are afraid of you, And I know that some of those people have earned being afraid of you. And I know that some of them probably haven't. I know that you have done things I would not be able to look at. I am not asking you to tell me about those things. You are a grown man. You made your bed. I am not going to make it for you, and I am not going to stand over it and inspect the corners. Okay? Okay. But my daughter sat on your stoop when you were 15, and my daughter just got out of 14 years with a man I never liked and couldn't prove anything about. And my daughter is in my kitchen for the first time in 2 years because of you, and so I want to tell you a thing. Yes, ma'am. Linda. Linda. She is not a project. He was very quiet. No, ma'am. She is not a thing you fix, Roman. She is not a thing you win. She is not a thing you wait for now that the waiting is done. She is a grown woman. She is my grown woman. She belongs to herself. Do you understand me? Yes. Say it back. She belongs to herself. Good. Linda, I'm still speaking, Roman. Okay. If I ever see a bruise on her, Roman Vexley, if I ever see one fingerprint, if I ever see her small the way she was small last Christmas when I took her to the mall and she flinched at a sales clerk, I don't care what you are in this city. I don't care how many men you have. I will walk into whatever house you are in with a cast iron pan and I will swing it. Are we clear? Yes, ma'am. Linda. Linda. Good. Roman let out a breath he had, Vivian thought, been holding for approximately 22 years. Thank you, he said. For what? For that. Oh, stop. Linda, thank you. Nobody's ever... Thank you. Well, Linda turned back to the sink. Somebody should have. Vivian looked at her mother's back and felt something she did not quite have the language for. It was not pride exactly. It was not gratitude. It was something older than both. It was the recognition that her mother, who had worked double shifts and drunk too much wine in 1997 and had not, historically, been a woman who said the right thing at the right moment, had walked into this particular moment and said exactly the right thing at exactly the right weight, in a voice that neither begged nor threatened, and had simply told a man who could destroy a city with a phone call that if he harmed her daughter, she would hit him with a frying pan. Linda had always had it in her. It had just taken 58 years and a bad marriage of her daughters to bring it all the way to the surface. They stayed until the light started going yellow in the kitchen, which was the way it always did in Linda's kitchen at about 4 in the afternoon in the spring. Linda made them eat sandwiches. They were turkey. They were Roman's exact sandwiches from 2003. Turkey, cheese, no mustard. And Linda did not say a word about it. She just made them and set them down and nobody commented, because some things were better when they weren't remarked on. Vivian's phone buzzed once while they were eating. It was Daphne. Landed in Rye. Meeting went well. I'm going to need a minute before I can type about it. She is okay. She is better than okay. I will call you at 8. Vivian set the phone face down. Roman looked at her across the table. Daphne. Yeah. Okay. Okay. He nodded. He didn't ask. Linda was watching them. You two have a thing, Linda said. Ma. I'm not asking. I'm observing. You're asking. Fine. I'm asking. We have a thing, Ma. How much of a thing? We have a thing we are deciding about, Ma. Slowly, on purpose. I'm not going to describe it to you at this table. Okay? Okay. Is there a ring involved? Ma. Vivian, you are 37. I am 58. We are not pretending I don't know what a man with a box is for. Is there a ring involved? Vivian and Roman looked at each other. There's a ring, Roman said. Have you put it on her finger, Roman Vexley? No, ma'am. Why not? Because she hasn't asked me to. Good answer. Thank you. Vivian. Yes, Ma. When you ask him to, you tell me first. I am not asking to be at a wedding. I am not asking for a ceremony. I do not need a dress, and I do not need a chicken dinner, and I do not need to meet his family. I am asking to know before I read it in a newspaper so that I can stand in my kitchen and say, oh good, my daughter has married her stoop boy. Is that agreed? Yes, Ma. Good. Ma, we are months away from that. I know, baby. I know. Linda reached across the table and put her hand over Vivian's. It was the first time Linda had done that in probably 4 years. Vivian had not realized she had been keeping count. "Take your time," Linda said. "I will. Take your time and eat a sandwich and let him wait. He doesn't mind waiting." "No," Vivian said. "He doesn't." Her son. They drove back into the city in the gray car, and by the time they hit the bridge, the sun was properly down, and the skyline was lit up the way it always was. The big, indifferent, lit-up skyline that did not care who owned what. Adrian Cole was arrested at 8:47 that evening. Not dramatically. Not with helicopters and floodlights and 100 reporters on a lawn. Daphne had been clear about this with the U.S. Attorney's Office. The indictment was going to be quiet. The arrest was going to be quiet. The headlines were going to be loud. They were going to be loud for months. But the arrest itself was going to be a Tuesday night thing, executed by 2 polite agents in off-the-rack suits who knocked on the penthouse door and waited, patiently, for Adrian to answer it in his socks. He did answer it. He had been sitting on the couch for 3 hours staring at a television he had not actually been watching. When he opened the door, one of the agents said his name, and he nodded, and the agent read him the list of charges, and it was a long list. Conspiracy to commit securities fraud, wire fraud, multiple counts, bank fraud, identity theft, 13 counts, 1 for each forged signature on each forged company. And at the end of the list, because Marcus Okafor had finally slept and had then, in a room in a hotel in a city the Cole people could not find, told a federal prosecutor every single thing he had been carrying for 8 years. Conspiracy to commit murder in the second degree of Eugene Whitford on or about the 22nd of September, 2017. Adrian did not fight. That was the thing that would, later, confuse everyone who had ever met him. Adrian Cole, who had fought about every valet parking charge he had ever been handed, did not fight on the night he was arrested. He listened to the list. He let the agent finish. He said, "Okay." He put his shoes on. He picked up his phone, and then he set it back down because there was no one left to call. He walked out of the penthouse in handcuffs. There was one reporter in the lobby. It was a young woman from a local paper who had been staking out the building on a hunch for 6 hours, eating a cold pretzel. She took one photograph. It was blurry. It would run on the front of her paper the next morning, and it would be, for the rest of Adrian Cole's life, the only photograph of him most people remembered. A tired man in socks and loafers being walked across a marble lobby by 2 polite strangers, with a coat thrown over his shoulders by an agent who was being, in his small, careful way, kind. In the pink house in Elmridge, Linda Blake watched the arrest on the 11 o'clock news with a glass of wine in her hand and a cat on her lap, and she did not say anything, and she did not call Vivian because Vivian was sleeping. In a brick house on a quiet street in the city, Vivian was not sleeping. She was sitting on the kitchen floor with her back against a cabinet, with Roman sitting on the floor across from her against the opposite cabinet, because he had come down for water and found her there and had sat down without asking if it was okay. They had between them a bottle of wine they were not really drinking and a plate of crackers neither of them was really eating. Vivian's phone was face down on the tile. It had buzzed once, 20 minutes earlier, and she had turned it over, and she had read the 2-word text from Daphne, "It's done," and then she had turned it face back down, and then she had sat there on the floor, and she had started, very quietly, to shake. Roman had come down for water. He had sat down. He had not said anything. That was what she needed, and he had known it. "Roman, yeah, I don't feel better. I know. I thought I would feel better. I know. Why don't I feel better?" "Because he was your husband, Viv. For 14 years. The fact that he was a bad husband does not mean he was not your husband. You loved him, once. You loved the man you thought he was. And when that man turns out to be what he was, you don't get to skip the grief for the man you thought you had. You still loved him. That man never existed. You still loved him. That's a real thing to grieve." "I don't want to grieve him, Roman. I know. I don't want him to get one more minute of my..." "He's going to get a lot more minutes, Viv. For a while. That's what grief is. It takes the minutes it takes. Is that supposed to be comforting?" "No." "Okay. I'm not trying to comfort you, Viv. I'm sitting with you. That's a different thing." Yeah. A pause. The fridge hummed. Outside, very far, a siren went. Roman. Yeah. The thing with Marcus and Carla and Marin in Rye. Yeah. Was that... Did we do the right thing? Viv. I mean it. I'm asking. Did we do the right thing? He's going to go to prison. For a long time. Maybe for his whole life. I set that in motion. I set it in motion on a kitchen island at 4:17 in the morning, and I want to know before I go to sleep tonight if I did the right thing. Roman set down the glass of water. I'm not the right person to ask, Viv. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. I'm a person who has done things you don't ever want to know the details of. I am not a moral compass. I can tell you what I think, but I can't tell you if it's right. I stopped using that word a long time ago because I stopped being qualified to use it. Roman. Yeah. Tell me what you think. He looked at her. I think Gene Whitford was 59 years old, he said, and I think he had 4 grandchildren. I think the youngest one was 3 weeks old when he died, and I think that grandchild is 8 years old now and has been told her whole life that her grandfather fell. I think that grandchild is going to grow up now and be told the truth. I don't know if knowing the truth is going to be easier or harder than not knowing it. I think that's a thing her mother is going to have to decide. But I think she's going to get the chance to decide it, which she didn't have before. And I think that chance is a thing worth doing difficult work for. Okay. I think Marcus Okafor was going to die of this, Viv. Inside. I think he was going to drink, or he was going to get in a car, or he was going to sit in a chair for too long and something in him was going to give out at 49 years old. I think now he's going to live. I think his kids are going to have a father. I don't know what they'll tell them about why they moved, and I don't know what their new last names are going to be, but I know that a 14-year-old boy is going to have his dad, and that's because of a conversation you and I had on a kitchen island at 4 in the morning. Okay. I think Carla Reyes is going to testify in a federal courtroom in about 4 months, and her daughter is going to start college in the fall, and the tuition is going to be paid, and Carla is not going to know, until maybe years from now, that she has people. I think a person who has spent 6 years thinking she was alone is, quietly, starting to not be alone. I think that matters. Okay. I think we did the right thing, Viv. I don't know if it's going to feel right. I don't think right things always feel right. I think sometimes they feel like sitting on a kitchen floor at midnight shaking, but I think we did it. She nodded. She couldn't quite speak for a minute. Roman. Yeah. I don't want to be the kind of person who does this for a living. Then don't. What? Then don't. Don't be that person. Today was today. Tomorrow will be tomorrow. You don't have to take down a different empire every month, Viv. You did this one because he was yours to do. That doesn't mean you go looking for the next one. Then what do I do? I don't know. That's yours to figure out. But you have time. You have money. You have a mother who would like to see you more than twice a year. You have a box on a kitchen counter whose contents you haven't decided about yet. You have a whole life, Viv. You had one before today, too. You just couldn't get to it. Now you can. She sat there for a long minute. I want a garden, she said. He looked at her. A garden. I don't know, something. I had one when I was a kid. You remember. The one behind my mom's house, with the tomatoes. The one you used to water when we were both 15, because my mom was at work and I kept forgetting. I remember. I want that. Not that exact one, but something. Something small. A thing I grow. I have not, Roman, in 14 years, I have not grown a single thing. I have not planted one. I have not, the house was always professionally landscaped. I wasn't allowed to touch it. I literally wasn't allowed to touch it. There was a schedule. Okay. Is that stupid? No. It's stupid, isn't it? Viv, you just helped put a man in federal prison, and what you want to do tomorrow is plant a tomato. That is not stupid. That is possibly the sanest thing you have said in 48 hours. Okay? Okay. Roman. Yeah. Can I have a dog? He laughed. For real. A short, real laugh. In the kitchen, on the floor, at midnight. You can have a dog, Viv. A big one. A big one. A slow one. I don't want a fast one. I want one of those big slow dogs that lies in the sun and is a little bit dumb. Okay. Maybe 2. Viv. What? You can have 2 dogs. Okay, okay. They sat on the floor for a while longer, with the wine they weren't drinking and the crackers they weren't eating, and the fridge hummed and the city outside did its thing, and the world was not fixed. It would not be fixed. Not really. Ever. Vivian understood this with a flat clarity she had not had the day before. But it was turned now, on a different axis. The axis it was supposed to have been on the whole time. A lot of things happened in the next year that were, if you had been reading about them, very dramatic. The trial of Adrian Michael Cole ran for 71 days and was, at various points, the lead story on every news network in the country. Carla Reyes testified on day 19. Marcus Okafor testified on day 34. Dr. Ruth Ann Pell testified on day 41 and turned out to be a small woman from Boston with excellent posture who used the word indisputable 7 times in a way that the jury, afterward, said they had found very calming. Maren Whitford did not testify. The prosecution had not asked her to. They had not had to. Her letters, read into the record, had done the thing letters do. Adrian was convicted on all counts. The murder charge stuck. He was sentenced to 41 years in federal prison. He was 52 years old. He would be, if he lived, 93 when he came out. He did not speak in court. His mother did not come. His mother had, by then, moved to a smaller house in Connecticut and had, people said, a new social circle, and did not discuss her son at parties. Vivian did not attend the sentencing. That surprised people. There was an expectation. The kind of expectation reporters had, which was always wrong about specific people, because reporters were always generalizing from the general to the specific, that Vivian Blake would be in the courtroom on sentencing day, that she would give a statement, that she would look her ex-husband in the face and say a thing. She was not in the courtroom. She was in a greenhouse in New Jersey. She had bought the greenhouse 3 months before. It was a medium-sized one, attached to a medium-sized house, which she had bought with her own money. Not Adrian's, not Roman's. And she had spent that winter learning how to make things grow in a place where it was cold outside. She had killed a lot of seedlings. She had been very bad at it for a long time. She was, by the spring, getting better. The day Adrian was sentenced, she was potting tomatoes. She had decided with Daphne that she was not going to watch the news that day. She was not going to check her phone. She was going to put on gloves that were slightly too big for her because the first pair she had bought had been too small and she had refused to go back and exchange them out of a kind of stubborn embarrassment. And she was going to pot tomatoes in a greenhouse in New Jersey, which was about 20 minutes from the pink house where her mother was, at that exact moment, making her own lunch. Roman was there. He had come out for the day because she had asked him to. He was wearing an old flannel that he claimed was from 2003, and that Vivian suspected was, in fact, a perfectly recent flannel he had scuffed up on purpose. He was, badly, helping. "You're doing it wrong, Roman. I'm doing it the way you told me to. I told you to do it gently. That's not gentle." "Viv, I am being gentle. Your thumb is on its neck." "It doesn't have a neck, Viv. It's a tomato." "It has a stem, Roman. And you have your thumb on its stem, and you are pressing, and that's not gentle, that's... Give it to me." She took it, she potted it, she did it the way she did everything now, which was the slow, deliberate, faintly amused way of a woman who had, after a very long time, stopped being in a hurry. Roman watched her do it. "Viv, yeah, I want to say something. Okay? It's not a proposal. Okay? It is a thing related to a proposal." "Roman, Viv, I know. I'm adjacent. I am in the neighborhood of the thing. I am telling you now because I don't want to do it on a day when there's news. I don't want you to look back on a thing and remember it was the day of a verdict. I want it to be on a Tuesday in April, in a greenhouse with your hands in dirt." "Roman, I have had that ring in that box for 23 years now. I'm not in a hurry. I want you to know that. I'm not in a hurry. I will be in no hurry for another 23, but I want to ask a thing." She set the tomato down. She took off the 2 big gloves. She sat on the upside-down plastic bucket she kept in the greenhouse for when her back got tired. "Ask, Roman." "Will you? One day. One day, Viv, whenever you want. I am not attaching a date. Will you put that ring on and come with me to Elmridge, to the courthouse? and sign a piece of paper. Just a piece of paper. No big thing. No party. No press. Just you and me and your mother and maybe Daphne and a clerk and a paper. That's all. I want the paper, Viv. I don't need the rest, but I want the paper. She looked at him for a long moment. Roman. Yeah. Yes. 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 You mean yes, one day, or you mean, I mean yes, Roman. I mean, I want the paper too. I want the paper at the Elmridge courthouse, and I want my mother to be there in the cardigan from 2006, and I want Daphne to have her battered portfolio, and I want the clerk to be bored, and I want the whole thing to take 40 minutes, and I want to come home afterwards and pot tomatoes. Viv, I want to do it in June. Viv, shh. June, Roman. Is that too soon? No. Is it too soon for you? No. I thought you might want to wait. I have been waiting, Viv. I know. He sat down on the concrete floor of the greenhouse because there was nowhere else to sit, and his legs had, for 1 second, declined to continue holding him up. He was 40 years old, and he was sitting on a concrete floor in a greenhouse in New Jersey in a flannel, and his face was doing a thing, and Vivian got off the bucket and sat down next to him on the concrete floor and took his hand. Roman. Yeah. It's okay. I know. You can take a minute. I know. Take a minute, Roman. He took a minute. They sat on the concrete floor of the greenhouse for probably 10 minutes. Nobody interrupted. Nobody would have dared. The men at the gate knew better. The dogs. She had ended up with 2. A very large old yellow one named Charlie and a smaller one of indeterminate breed named Sandwich, because Roman had named her on the day they'd picked her up out of a shelter and the name had stuck. Were asleep in the sun on the other side of the greenhouse glass, and they did not care what the humans were doing, and they would not have cared if the humans had told them. After 10 minutes, Roman said, Viv? Yeah. I need you to know something. Okay. I do not know how to be a husband. Roman. I don't, Viv. I am telling you. I have been a lot of things. I have not been that. I am going to do it badly. I am going to mess it up. In ways you are going to have to tell me about. I need you to tell me when I do. I need you to tell me plainly and quickly because I am not going to figure it out on my own. My father was a bad one. My grandfather was a bad one. I come from a line of bad ones. I am going to try. I'm going to try the way I have never tried anything. But I'm telling you before the paper. I am not good at this. You need to know. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Roman. Yeah. Me either. What? I wasn't a good wife, Roman. Viv. I wasn't. I was a wife to a bad husband, which meant I spent 14 years trying to be a particular kind of thing that wasn't me. And by the end of it, I didn't know how to be anything else. I don't know how to be a wife either. Not a real one. I was never a real one. I was a performance of one. I'm going to mess this up too, Roman. I am going to be closed off. I'm going to not know how to say a thing until 3 days after I should have said it. I'm going to flinch at things you don't mean. I'm going to apologize for things that aren't my fault because my body hasn't figured out yet that I'm allowed to stop. I am going to ask you to wait for me on things, and I am going to need you to actually wait. I am telling you too, before the paper. He put his hand over hers. Okay. We'll figure it out, Viv. Yeah. Badly. Yeah. Together. Yeah. Cool. They got married on a Tuesday in June in Elmridge at the courthouse on Main Street at 11:04 a.m., which was, neither of them commented on it, but both of them noticed. The exact minute Vivian had stepped into Roman's car outside a different courthouse 14 months earlier. Linda was there, in the cardigan from 2006, with her reading glasses on her head. Daphne was there, in the navy suit with the battered portfolio. Miriam was there, the woman who made apricot jam and had 3 cats, and who had, 13 months earlier, made a phone call that had changed 2 lives. Elias Boone was there because he had refused to stay in the car. The clerk was a man named Marvin who had processed 4 marriages already that morning, and he was tired, and he did not recognize any of the names on the paper because Vivian had filed under Blake, and Roman had filed under his grandmother's last name, which was Costa, which was the name he had stopped using a very long time ago and which he had, that morning, picked back up. Marvin said the words. They said the words back. Vivian signed Vivian Ellen Blake with her real signature, which was the signature of a woman who signed only for herself, and Roman signed Roman Anthony Costa with a hand that did not quite stop shaking, and Linda, against every promise she had made to herself about not crying, cried, and Daphne handed her a tissue from the battered portfolio, and the thing was done. The ring went on Vivian's finger in the hallway afterwards, because Roman had, in a very un-Roman move, forgotten to bring the ring out of his pocket during the ceremony. Vivian laughed at him for 10 minutes. He took it with the tired, happy, slightly shamefaced grace of a man who had, after 40 years, stopped being perfectly in control of his own face, and who was finding, to his surprise, that he didn't mind. They went to Sal's deli for lunch. Sal was dead by then. He had been dead for 3 years. His daughter ran the deli now, a woman named Joni, who had been 2 grades below Vivian in school, and who did not recognize either of them for almost a full minute, and who then recognized Linda first, and who then put it together, and who then said, "Oh my God, Vivian Blake." And Vivian said, "Hi, Joni," and they hugged across the counter, and Joni did not ask any of the questions she obviously wanted to ask, because Joni was a Jersey woman who knew, on sight, when not to ask. They ate at the back table, 6 of them, 7, once Elias finally came inside. It was, and Vivian would think about this later with a certain quiet satisfaction, not a glamorous wedding lunch. The sandwiches were wrapped in paper. The iced tea came in a pitcher with a chip on the rim. Somebody at a different table was, very loudly, complaining to Joni about the price of pastrami. It was the best meal Vivian had ever eaten. That was the part she would remember. Not the ring, not the paper, not the courthouse. A pastrami sandwich in a deli in a town she had spent 14 years trying not to think about, with a mother who was embarrassing her and a lawyer who was pretending not to cry into her pickle, and a husband who was, in the reflection of the window behind him, watching her eat the way he had always, apparently, watched her eat, like a person watches weather they've been told they wouldn't live to see. Bucks. The lesson, if there was one, was not complicated. Vivian would think about it for years afterward, and she would never quite say it out loud. Because the moment you said a thing like this out loud, it stopped meaning what it had meant when it was just a thought. But she thought it often. She thought it when she was potting tomatoes, and when she was walking the dogs, and when she was sitting on the porch of the pink house drinking coffee out of her mother's yellow mug. The lesson was that some people wait for you. Not the way Adrian had waited, which was not waiting at all, which was a kind of assumption. A man assuming a woman would be exactly where he left her because he had never once considered that she was a separate thing with her own legs. That wasn't waiting, that was storage. The other kind of waiting was different. The other kind of waiting was a boy making sandwiches in your mother's kitchen on Sunday when you weren't home and never telling you. It was a box in a drawer for 23 years. It was a car idling outside a courthouse at 8 in the morning for a 3-hour trial, just in case. It was a man choosing, every single day for 2 decades, to not become his father, to not become the thing his blood told him to be. Because somewhere in the back of his life there was a stoop, and a girl who had sat on it with him, and a promise he had made to himself on her behalf without ever telling her. That kind of waiting did not make a person entitled to you. That was the part a lot of men got wrong. That kind of waiting made a person worthy of being considered by you, if and when you got to the place where considering was something you had room for. Vivian had for 14 years been in a marriage that had not left her room to consider anything. She had been in a structure, a schedule, a performance. She had been a piece of furniture that occasionally made a man look good at dinner, and the furniture had not had room to decide anything. And then, on a rainy day outside a courthouse, she had gotten into a car, and a man in the back seat had said, "Get in, Viv," and she had gotten in. And what she understood now, more than a year later, potting tomatoes in a greenhouse in New Jersey, with dirt under her nails and a ring on her finger that was older than her marriage had been. What she understood now was that the car had not saved her. She had saved herself. The car had just been there when she was ready, and the man in the car had been careful, for 22 years, to become the kind of man who would be allowed to open the door when the moment came, and who would, after opening it, let her decide whether to get in. That was the whole thing. That was everything. The rest was tomatoes and a mother in a cardigan and a yellow dog named Charlie asleep in the sun, and a small dog of indeterminate breed named Sandwich, and a courthouse in Elmridge on a Tuesday in June, and a pastrami sandwich at the back table of a deli run by a woman 2 grades behind her in school, and a city that had once belonged to a man who had assumed it always would, and a woman who had finally stopped apologizing, and a boy who had finally stopped waiting, and a life, quiet and imperfect and slow, and hers, unfolding in a pink house, and a greenhouse, and a brick house on a quiet street, under a sky that did not any longer feel gray.